Well, a very good morning and welcome to the start of the Global Trail World Series program for 2026. And we started off in Zegama, perhaps or undoubtedly the hardest race of the season. And this is one that will certainly catch out those that haven't been putting the training together for the last couple of months. It's a sensational race. The atmosphere is like nothing else in the world of trail running. And really looking forward to this, particularly, David, because there's been so much rain over the last week. It's going to be like it was back in 2018 when Remy Bonnet won this. It's going to be muddy. There'll be big falls, but there'll be some sensational running as well.
Yes, it's going to be a completely different race to anything we've seen at Zegama this last 7 years. We're going back more to the Austrian race last year to get a sense of what this will be like, but we can look at what the season has for us on offer. It's a very different look to our season in 2026. 7 races across the world leading up to a big final, but we've got some completely new races this year as well. We've already seen there, we're heading to Canada for the Quebec Mega Trail. Back to Sierras now, then another new race, Myoko Trail, still in Japan, but a completely new course. Back to China after that for the Jinshanling Great Wall Trail race, and a completely new final. The Golden Trail is going to be heading to South Korea for the very first time. An absolutely brutal finish to our season.
Yeah, Korea really looking forward to that. They, of course, bidding for the 2036 Summer Olympics, and that is going to be a showcase event, and it looks a tough race. 26K, over 2,200 meters of vertical ascent, but that still doesn't compare to what the athletes have got to take on today. 42K, it's a marathon distance, and they're going to have some 2,736 meters of vertical climbing, and it's not in one big shot. 4 big peaks will be covered here, and we're in that sort of northern part of Spain, not far from the French border. It's what, 100K or so to Bilbao to the north. Madrid is a 4.5-hour drive to the south, and I can tell you plenty of people have made the journey to come and watch this one. And we're what, 70K or so from Pamplona, if bull running is your thing. That celebration, of course, early July, but this is all about the mountains, all about trail running. And David, because it's the 25th anniversary, they've invited all the ex-champions. They haven't all turned up, but Kilian Jornet is here as we have a look at the course. And this is the first big climb.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, we've got all the favourites here today, but this course is dominated by those climbs and dominated by the weather. You'll see how green this map looks, and that's because up in the mountains in this part of Spain, it is wet 50% of the time. It rains 50% of the year in Zegama, and that means underfoot it is going to be extremely muddy. And so not only will you have to climb well, you're going to have to somehow navigate, slip and slide for a full 42 kilometers. We call it a marathon, but bear in mind the course record held by the masterful Kilian Jornet is 3 hours and 36. This is a man who, were he to dedicate himself to purely marathon running, would be definitely under 2:10, and yet it takes him 3 hours 36. In fact, Nienke Brinkman, the female course record holder, she has a 2:22 marathon time. It took her 4 hours and 16 to finish this course, the course record. So that is how hard this race is.
Yeah, well, they've been lined up for some 10, 11 minutes already. They've still got 4 or 5 to go before the start of the race. Luckily, the temperatures are very reasonable indeed, and with plenty of cloud cover, it's going to be decent conditions this year. You said it rains half the year, about 200 days of rain a year, which is pretty much on a par with Fort William in the west of Scotland, and anyone who comes from there knows exactly how wet that is. There will be mud, and actually there's also going to be snow on the higher parts of the course.
Yeah, we've seen 3 years ago they had to change the route because of race conditions. At the top top, and we're now looking at our top 10 coming through here. Barbara, one of the younger runners who is joining us for the whole season. I'll be intrigued to see how Valentin Rito does here. We've seen a lot of athletes from Kenya struggle in these conditions. The fact that she's in NNormal means she's got Kilian, she's got Elhousine in her team, so she will understand the course. Whether she's ready for it, though, is another thing. And also in the same team, Lucille Germain, she has not been a golden racing this season for quite some time. She was first here in about 2021, has been doing a lot more technical races since and has returned. But the big name that we're going to be talking about, and even in the background here, you can see we have Elise Poncet, an extremely good downhill runner, extremely good descender who will be coming through the second half of the race. But today, this race is going to be absolutely dominated by who I honestly believe is the most exciting trail runner in all men and women's trail running. Tove Alexandersson is racing the Golden Trail for the first time in 5 years.
Judith Vida, pretty handy when it comes to downhill sections. If she's in contention at the top of the final hill, certainly she will make a comeback. She had a good bid last year to get ahead of Alonso, but just left herself with too much to do. There is Alexandersson, always wears that headband, a world-class orienteer. She's got more world titles in orienteering than anyone else in history. She's got, what, 6 world titles in different sports. She's a skier, she's a ski orienteer, she's an orienteer, she's a trail runner. There is nothing that number 7 can't do, so keep an eye on her. What about the men's field? It's stacked, but there are 2 names that stick out. Last year's winner, Elazzaoui, and of course Kilian Jornet, who is back for a 13th time. There he is, wearing 28.
I mean, look at Elhousine there. He's just behind, on the shoulder of Kilian. He's just so cool. He's looking like the Terminator there. Not even a hit of stress on his face. Roberto De Lorenzi on the left here, a very good trail runner as well. But we actually have all of the champions here since 2017 racing. And so not only do we have Elhousine and Kilian running together, Remy Bonnet, who launched his career here in 2019, twice Golden Trail World Series champion, is racing. And if we're talking about someone who could run well in the wet, we're seeing on screen soon, shortly, Manu Marias, the Spanish runner who won here 3 years ago. But the exciting new runner coming through in the center of our screen, number 38, Taylor Stack. He arrives in the season late last year, a very talented trail runner from America, has track speed, he's one to watch. And in the white there with Red Bull, Remy Bonnet, we've mentioned him, Skimo world champion, VK world record holder. He'll be here wanting to win.
Yeah, number 1 there. Last year's winner, Sara Alonso. Can she do it again? The 3rd time she's done this race. She comes from a steeplechase background. Very, very strong mentally as well as physically. So she'll certainly be giving Alexandersson a run for her money. The start of the Global Trail World Series for 2026, just seconds away. And here we go, men and women starting together in this particular race. Over 42 kilometers of severe mountain trails, but a huge, huge field, dwarfed only by the number of spectators. And considering, David, that this event was only introduced in 2002, it has grown like nothing else on the planet. It's a sensational event, and one which thousands upon thousands of fans will enjoy firsthand today.
Even even within the first 10 years, it's felt historic. And 25 years on, this feels like one of the races that has changed trail running globally more than any other. It's the one that runners want to do, only 500 spots, but we talk about the huge crowds. It doesn't seem like that looking at these pictures, and that's because 15,000 people are up in the clouds, ready to cheer them on as they hit Sancta Spiritu. As you look through the town, they're doing a quick lap here, a quick speed lap. You'll see all the vans because only 1,500 people live in this town, and everyone turns up in camper vans, in tents, trying to get closer to where the climb is so they can get up there early morning. But after this short sprint through the town, about 800 meters, they will then start climbing. And it was at that point last year, immediately, that Kilian broke away from everyone. So the question is Kilian planning to break everyone from the start today?
Yeah, that was back in 2024, because, of course, Kilian didn't race last year.
So, good point, good point.
Elazzaoui was the man who came through to win, 3:43.28, the winning time last year. Just listening to some of the pre-race interviews, David, I think with the muddy conditions, everyone's expecting it to be a bit slower than last year, and certainly not getting anywhere close to that 3:36.40 that we saw from Kilian Jornet back in 2022.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me if the first half of this race isn't hugely off that time. It really depends quite how slick the climbing is, but it's the downhill where they're not going to be able to grip at all. And one of the factors that will come into play is shoe selection, because there are lots of teams, there are lots of different choices of trainers, and not all of them are specialised in this type of wet weather. We see a lot of brands are great on rocks, great on dust, but mud is something different, and your shoe can clog, and that will be a factor today.
Well, already starting to string out in the early stages of the race. A lot of the global trail races, David, essentially up and down. This one is very different. 4 peaks to negotiate. Which of the 4 do you think is the hardest?
Sancta Spiritu we're going to talk about quite a bit. Almost the halfway mark in terms of distance, 20k in. It's a very, very steep climb, but also because the crowds are on top of you, it can be overwhelming. But interestingly now, look at that at the front in white. That is Remy Bonnet leading out. Kilian Jornet, I believe, is on his shoulder, and they're already pulling away. Behind them, to me, that looks like Elhousine Elazzaoui, potentially in third there. And this battle is already beginning. Remy Bonnet is an extremely good climber. He knows that he is not going to be able to beat Kilian Jornet on the downhill of these races. So if he wants to win today, he needs to bury himself on these climbs and try and lose Kilian and put enough time into him that he can't be caught on that downhill.
Yeah, Bonnet, of course, you know, you mentioned his injuries last year, but he's come back with a bang this year. He's got the VK world record, the vertical kilometre world record, 27:21. That is absolutely phenomenal. He did that in Fully in Switzerland, which is really a specialist VK course, but astonishing times. And I think to really appreciate how good that is, you have to try a VK yourself.
And if you don't know what a VK is where you climb 1,000 meters of elevation as fast as you can. So typically that's only over a 5k distance. So you know, huge amount of climbing as we're seeing here. But we've talked about the wet, and you can see on your screens now already what this means. This is not compact, this is not dry. Even on these initial climbs, people will be slipping and sliding, and that starts to not only wear you down, but it means you're not going to be as fast as on a dry course.
Yeah, the rain from the last few days still trickling down the mountainside. The course certainly looking damp compared to last year.
But let's see some highlights of last season now.
Zaria was outstanding last year.
Different to this year, though. Last year's season began a couple of months earlier. The first few races were in March, April. So this later May has meant that runners can adapt more to trail running. Lauren Gregory on screen here emerged towards the end of the season, but you can see the contrast in the shots and the fact that all of these photos are beautiful sunshine. As soon as I said that, we had our shots of Austria there, a bit of wet. But going into our final, we had Elhousine on perfect points, undefeated outside of Sierra Zanao. And so today he needs to start winning early with the awareness that the two Kenyan runners from Team Run Together on our screen now, Philemon Kiriego and Patrick Kipinuno, his great rivals, will be returning to the season later this year.
Yeah, no Kipinuno or Kiriego for today's race. Is that just a tactical decision? Because 7 races plus the grand final, only 4 of the 7 count towards the points at the end of the season.
Yeah, this season is a very long season. The 7 races may not sound like a lot, but if you consider that a lot of marathon runners, road marathon runners, will only run at most twice 2 big races a year, let alone 1, and yet they're going out and running hard for 3-4 hours at a time. And so not only is the impact of this race going to last with you for quite a long time, but unless you've run on terrain like this, it's extremely hard to adapt to. And so they've intentionally avoided this race, knowing that it's better for them to choose races and focus on ones that suit their distances, their speed, but also their technical skills, because this is a race where you have to be technically gifted, not just to run well, but actually to finish without injury.
Yeah, and of course, it's only 7 days until the next race in the series, so you wouldn't expect too many who are racing today to get the racing shoes on again at Ledro Sky Trentino next week, which of course was the grand final last year. Bit of pressure on the Italians maybe to make a home appearance, but everyone wants to race Zegama, everyone wants to win Zegama.
And Remy Bonai here, so maybe is Remy actually out front? Potentially Remy, yes, and we didn't even see him. So Remy Bonnet has gone out hard. Wow, this is what we want to see. Remy Bonnet has put down a marker. He is here to win. Fantastic, exactly what we wanted to see in this race. Elhousine being challenged.
Yeah, remember Bonnet winning, what was it, 8 years ago now, back in 2018. 3:53 was his time on that occasion. Not particularly quick, but it was just like this. It was Mud City. And Bonnet actually, in his interview prior to this race, had a big smile on his face when he was asked about the conditions. So he's obviously delighted with that. Details of the sprint segment there, 1.54 kilometers, and the average slope at 5:14.
Yeah, it's, I mean, you can see they're saying sprinting on that terrain. You get a sense of what it's like underfoot. Now, we've had Marlenosa has gone through. It was a few seconds ago, followed by Thérèse Leboeuf, who... Thérèse Leboeuf led this race 2 years ago at this stage. And, but interestingly, Kilian didn't go with Remy Bonnet. And we saw when Kilian last raced here, he flew out of the traps as soon as he went up that hill. And another very good local runner on. So we expect to see number 43 on our screen here. A very good runner, top 5 in in the last 2 years as well. But
that was Madalina Amari going through for Romania, who had a really good season back in 24. Wasn't quite so good in 25, but certainly worth keeping an eye on in the top 10 of the women's rankings at the moment.
And Lucie Jamel just going through at that stage. But yeah, we know that Kilian has, at races like Sierra Zanau, and even in Zegama, his climbing is second to no one in the world. And yet he has decided not to go with Remy. So the question is Kilian not in the shape that we expect to see him, or has Remy really gone all out? Because if we looked at when Remy was on screen earlier, we couldn't see anyone behind him. We haven't quite got splits yet to get a sense of where they are in comparison to each other. But it looks like Remy is putting down a marker and trying to win this race early.
Well, there's an understatement if ever there were one. Winning time should be under 4 hours despite the conditions here, but that's just 35 minutes gone. You can see just how muddy it is, and you can pick out those that have got the footwear wrong because they're slipping and sliding all over the place. Even on these sections, come the final downhill, they're going to have a very, very tough time indeed. Marlon Osser, third last year, David, but she had real problems in the early stages. She had cramps after a really fast start, then dropped back through the field, recovered well in the final stages. She'll certainly be looking for another podium. Put the injuries of last year behind him. This course suits him with a big climb coming early on. I guess he has to play to his strengths, and he's certainly done that so far, but he's got another 3 hours of running to go.
And this is a massive lead, an absolutely massive lead for this stage in the run. And the fact that he has won here before, he has raced here before, he knows this course extremely well. And so the tougher climbs are still to come. It's the big climb up to Arats at the 16k mark that is really going to be significant, and we've talked about it, the climb of Sancti Spiritu. So this isn't even the harder climbs for him, and he is stretching a lead out now. The fact that Kilian is with Elhousine could mean they can work together, but it might mean that Elhousine is too content to sit with his teammate, and similarly with Kilian. Remy is out of sight right now. They won't know where he is, and there is a chance that he could build a significant lead too far for them to be able to claw back.
And actually, if he does win today, David, that means that Kilian Jornet will have won 50% of the races run. I know this is the 25th anniversary, but 2021 were both cancelled due to COVID. And so we've actually only had, at the end of today, 23 Zegamas.
Yeah, I mean, and that to me it just shows the confidence of René Bonnet. You know you're racing someone who is arguably, well, probably unarguably, the greatest trail runner of all time, and yet you're saying, I don't care. And look how relaxed he is. He's just smiling. We don't often see Remy Bonnet wave in races. That's an unusual thing for him to do, and I think he knows he's in great shape and feeling good. I think he's delighted to be back in this series running well, because it has been, you know, when is his last performance from Golden Trail? When he won the series last, he lost the final. He was limping home that season even, back in 2023. And so, you know, this is the first race we've seen him do really well. But you've mentioned how Kilian might be letting him go. They've raced multiple times where Remy has tried to break Kilian on the climbs. At Sierra Zanau, typically, but even here before, when they've raced, Remy has tried to outclimb him, and he's never managed to succeed. So today, a very different story, and a big group of runners now. If this is our chasing group, we've now got 5 runners coming together, which is exciting to see.
Yeah, Jornet amongst this lot, last year's champion. Elazzaoui is in there as well. We'll have to pick up a few more bib numbers. Number 22 going through, that's Daniel Pattis, I'm sure you know. 28.
Kilian at the back there, just sat to... I mean, Kilian, it's hard, it wasn't looking as fluid as he normally does. But there's some great runners in here. We know Daniel Pattis was leading at the top last year before Elhousine took over. That to me looks like Robert Kimoy. Robert Kimoy has climbed extremely well. When we talk about 2023, where Remy was leading up, Robert Kimoy was actually pushing the pace up Santa Spiritu. And Manny Marios, very close to that pack with his sticks, given where he tends to be at this stage in the race. You know, we've got all the favourites up there looking very strong.
31, that's Alain Santamaria. Had a bad experience last year. He did what, an astonishing 14 races last year, but he started pretty well in 2026, so certainly could be on for top 10. I would have thought was likely. Top 5 is possible. Obviously depends what happens up front. That's Benjamin Rubiol.
And if we think about last year, at this stage, we weren't sure what to expect from the race, and it was actually Andre Blanes, the Spanish, I was going to call him a Spanish orienteer. Who knows how to classify him, because he does pretty much every type of running. He's done athletic steeplechase, an Olympian, and a marathon runner. But he took it upon himself to lead out very strongly.
And he still held on for second place. It was a fantastic race, really took it to Elazzaoui, made the Moroccan work for that one. But it was the speed that he set off. That was so astonishing. And do you liken the starting speed from Blanes to what we're seeing this year from Remy Bonnet?
I mean, it feels similar, but and like a minute, it doesn't seem like a lot, but a minute already is quite a significant gap. But I'd say the fact that Remy has got such a lead over such a big pack of talent, this is a different level to last year. And now I did note when Remy came past, did you see he was wearing 2 layers, a base layer covering his arms completely. And I do wonder whether it's his last experience here. He looked so cold when he raced back in 2023. He was leading, and I'm just checking to see if he even finished the race. No, I don't think he finished back in 2023. Just going back. Oh, yes, he did, in 4th place. But he was so cold from the top of this peak. So I do wonder whether he has gone out there with the fear of that race in his mind. And there we go, Tove Alexandersson still running alongside Bogdan Damien from Romania. Tove Alexandersson looking very fast coming through there. Just a flash second. She's too fast to stay on screen for too long, but we're hoping as the race unfolds, there'll be a little bit more chance for our camera runner to run alongside her and to get a sense of exactly how she's looking, and for you to see just how masterful she is on mud and the downhills. But you know, if we look underfoot here, this is very easy running, a little bit slick, but grass, good grip on here for all our runners.
Now, last time we saw the leading women, there was a 400-meter gap, a minute or so, between Alexandersson and Alonso. We should see Alonso come through this same section, and that's about 45, 50 seconds already, the gap between the two leading women. And Alexandersson is up to her old tricks. She is just phenomenal. And just a reminder, 6 world titles in different sports. Amongst them ski orienteering and of course orienteering, which is where she is absolutely astonishing. Ski mountaineering, of course, another one where she's shown herself to be the best in the world.
And these two have raced together at last year's World Championships. Sara Alonso and Tove Alexandersson went head to head. I think the crazy thing was the difference in their ability. You know, Tove was coming into trail as the World Championships just for a bit of fun without it being her main focus. And yet she won by 34 minutes, like insane. And we can talk about ITRA scores later, but her performance there in terms of female trail running was the highest scoring ITRA score in the history of trail running. Crazy when you think that that wasn't her sole focus. Trail running still isn't what she... And there's Sara Alonso coming through now.
Well, that's 2 minutes. That's 2 minutes, 7 seconds by my calculation, maybe a couple of seconds out. But that's doubled the margin between Alonso and Alexandersson. And the Swede from Borlänge is absolutely storming the early stages of Zegama. Just under an hour on the clock, and she's got a 2-minute lead over last year's champion, Sara Alonso.
I mean, we talked about Remy's lead of a minute being a lot. 2 minutes, it just shows how much class Tove has. And you know, Sara has said to me going into this that she's almost not thinking about Tove as being part of her race. She's just going to race and try and pace. You know, Sara knows the course extremely well. She lives in San Sebastian, you know, within 60 kilometers of the course, and so she's just going to run as best she can and hope that that's enough. But there we go, confirmation. Yeah. 2 minutes.
2:08. Vida back at 1:34. Robsam of Norway 1:35 down on the race leader. Is that right? That's from 5K, so that's the previous split. That is the previous split. We did get a little inkling of the gap between the two leaders at the moment, but those other stats were from the previous split because those women have not come through this particular marker.
And the exciting element, and Sara will be thinking about Judith potentially more than Tove, because Judith and Tove, their downhill skills are insane, and Sara will have to build quite a big buffer to be able to hold off Judith on this downhill. And she's a Swiss orienteer who is used to the wet and would be relishing these longer distances as well. We've seen Judith step up to the longer distance last season. And then here's Marlon Osser coming through. So Marlon, you know, climbing through the ranks now, starting to pick up places. And another very, very good descender, a local runner who will be excited that it's wet. So with our, you know, of our top 10 women, we can see today that Zegama is bringing out those technical specialists to really focus on this race as their opportunity to score big.
Now, are we back with the race leader? Is this Remy Bonnet, who has got himself, last time we saw, he was a minute 15 clear of the chasing pack containing the favourites?
I can't see anyone behind him there. Yeah, I mean, he's still got a very good lead. And as you can see, he's wearing a base layer. He's wearing gloves. You know, he was washed off the course practically 3 years ago. It does get very exposed at the top, but he's looking very smooth now. Is that mud all on his back? It has. I saw the front of his legs were muddy as well. Potentially he's taken a fall, but it just shows even without runners around him, he's absolutely caked already. But this is nice.
Yeah, great pictures. And 1 hour, 25 minutes of running, and he's still making this severe climb look pretty easy. I don't think at this sort of pace that gap is going to be coming down anytime soon.
I mean, this is a remarkable pace for him to be pushing in a marathon. Like, when you look at something on screen that looks steep, you know it's going to be incredibly steep, because quite often the camera lies and you can't quite understand what depth just quite how steep the terrain will be. But he's looking very light on his feet, just dancing up there, and you can see how it's changing between rock and mud, not slipping out at all, just looking so relaxed here. And you know, he's going to need to, I think he's going to need at least a 4-minute lead at the top to be able to maintain that over people like Elhousine and Kilian and Manu Marius on the downhill. So he had a minute at 20 at the last checkpoint. There's still a lot of climbing left, and he knows now is when he's going to have to make that mark and try and dent into those times. Significantly.
Sorry, David, when you say 4 minutes, are you talking about the peak? You're talking about the final summit?
I think by the time, good question actually. I wouldn't imagine the times would change too much between our peak of the race at Aizkorri and Andreit, because there's a very steep down, but then also a steep climb. Significantly though, I'm looking back on the splits at Alt Zama. So we know it's wet today. We know it's going to be slower because of those conditions. When we look back at Kilian's time, when he broke the record on a blitzingly dry day and warm day, he came through Utsama at 41 seconds 40. Remy Bonnet, a minute ahead of course record time. That is insane. A minute given these conditions. What is he doing? Like, is this a Remy on a new level to we've ever seen before, or has he just gone out like, well, is he making a massive mistake here? A minute's lead after 5K is crazy.
Yeah, and he's coming up towards the 16K mark, the summit of Arats. Still waiting to catch up on the chasing group. We're expecting the gap to be somewhere around a minute, well, a minute and a half. I wouldn't be surprised if it was that big. Bonnet looks to be moving so easily at the moment. There's Elazzaoui, the defending champion, he's got company, he's got work to do. So often he hangs on the shoulder of the leader until the last climb, and then puts in a devastating sprint on the final descent to win. He's got to rethink his tactics today.
Yeah, he sat behind Daniel Pattis. This is similar to last year. We saw the two of them climbing together. You know, Daniel Pattis, what is he good at? What is he bad at? He just seems to be so consistent. You know, he's such a good climber. He's such a good descender. He's very good technically. Now, Remy Bonnet at the peak of Arats. This is a very steep descent coming now. Coming into, it will take you all the way down into our descent to our climb at Sancta Spiritu. This is where he needs to be moving, because he can lose a lot of ground here to someone like Elhousine. It wouldn't surprise me if Elhousine picks the pace up and is in second place by the bottom of that descent. So Remy has to be pushing it all the way through.
Yeah, it's not very often you see Kilian Jornet stumble, but that could be a sign of the fatigue and the fact that he's let the others go. He's still getting more support than anyone else. His reputation comes with him. 11 times the champion here at Zegama. And today it's going to be a tough ask to make it number 12.
Yeah, you've got to think this means Kilian isn't in the form he's had in previous years. Like, tactically, Kilian would not let them get away from him. And, you know, a Kilian in peak form would be able to stick with their speed. But then we've talked about the fact Remy is a minute under course record pace at the 8K mark, the 5-mile mark. Maybe Kilian knows something. Maybe Kilian's the only person who's actually pacing it well. But look at that mud there. This is going to be slippery. You know, Remy's looking like he's moving well, but it doesn't look like he's attacking it that much. He's not flowing that quickly. His stride length is quite short compared to when we see him running downhill on longer trail, now opening up a bit here. So already I think we can see a few chinks of weakness compared to when we see Elhousine flow over this.
Yeah, certainly a difference in his running style between the green grass and the brown muddy sections. And a little bit of caution, which might be a result of the fact that he looks as though he's taken a couple of falls already.
And this is where confidence is so vital, to be able to run quickly and attack the course. And the fact that Remy hasn't been racing as much as previous seasons. You know, last year he wasn't out there getting the experience the others have on courses like this. He was focusing very much on the VK after his injury, and so, you know, he's been focusing on training and climbing, and so he isn't used to running on course conditions like this. You mentioned Gtws up in the clouds, up in the mountains in snow. Remy Bonnet lives at a similar elevation in Switzerland. Yeah, but here, Daniel Palace. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Dave, just getting in some splits from the summit at Rats at 16.1k. Bonnet, as we know, leading the way, 1:29.16, but his lead has not extended. Daniel Pattis has cut it to just over that 1 minute mark, 1:30.21, so he's a minute and 5 behind. Elhousine Elazzaoui, 1:30.20, 7 seconds down on Pattis, and then Kilian Jornet at 1:31.01. So he's roughly 1:45 off the race leader, and he's let, some 40 seconds open up between Pattis and himself. So Jornet in a spot of bother. Remy Bonnet moving beautifully, but actually not extending his lead over this man, Daniel Pattis.
And if we look at the times compared to the race splits, at 13.5k, you know, he was still under the course record quite some distance. Now at Arats, that split 1:29.16 of Remy Bonnet, course record 1:28.59. So they've, as soon as they hit that downhill and the slightly muddier sections, they've slowed down versus the course record. But significant. Good luck to our cyclists trying to keep up. But there's a bit of a gap growing between Daniel Pattis and Elhousine.
So that lead could come down to under a minute as we watch Benjamin Rubiol. A little bit of running, a little bit of walking, but still looking pretty comfortable at this stage as he comes over the summit of Arats.
And we're back with Remy Bonnet now, flowing over the top there. And this downhill becomes extremely steep, but there are ups and downs. It does change. Now, when they get to the base of this, they're going to be running through a beautiful church and tunnel that takes us into Sanctus Spiritu, over some polished rocks, and that's where, if you're not experienced and you don't pick the right line, it can be very hard to stay on your feet.
Yeah, at least it doesn't rain in the cave.
True, absolutely.
Because otherwise it would be lethal. It would be lethal. So back with Bonnet.
And we saw Daniel Pattis taking on some nutrition as he was running downhill there. That's one area that Remy has had to work on over the last few years. He's not someone who's taken on huge amounts of nutrition throughout his career, and he's really had to adapt to try and ensure that he can fuel properly. But we've not seen a huge amount of very few bottles, very few gels in people's hands so far today.
Now, in terms of a marathon, most people would get away with just using fluids. Of course, some people using gels on a street marathon. What would you expect the intake, fluid, food to be over a race of this nature, which is going to take a good hour longer than a marathon?
It's very hard to say in a race like Zegama. If this was a dry race, we'd be looking at some of our athletes at least 60 grams of carbs, potentially pushing 100. They're not quite in the 120s you need for ultra running. But as you can see, with conditions like this, it's very hard to run with a bottle. You need your hands. You see Remy's wearing the gloves. Part of that's for warmth, partly it's to help control yourself when you're having to slip out. And because it is so, you need to be able to have your awareness and your hands free. It becomes harder to take on nutrition.
Tove Alexandersson, leading woman. Caption obviously wrong on this occasion. Now this is going to be interesting. 1:40.22 on the clock at the moment. Remy Bonnet went through in 1:29.16. How does that sort of time compare to the women's record? The women's record held, of course, by Nienke Brinkman from her race back in 2022.
That is, you put me on the spot there. So, well, coming over Arats back in when Nienke broke the record, she was in 1:42.31. She came through Arats, 1:42.31. So we'll get a split shortly to see.
Yeah, she's going to be close to that. She's going to be very, very close to that. It's just, what, 75 meters or so to go before she goes over the summit here. Not quite sure where the timing wand is, but Alexandersson, lots of mud spluttered up the back of the legs. Don't think that's a sign that she's been falling too often.
And you'll see here, she's switching between running and hiking and power hiking. She seems just so relaxed and able to do that. And one of, as it gets steeper, deploying the power hike, especially for longer sections, does allow you to use your arms a bit more. It does change the muscles that you're using. It's a very good tactic, and I suspect we'll see Sara and Judith also power hiking at that stage. But Remy, look at this pace. He looks glorious.
So Bonnet out on his own. Alexandersson leading the women's and looking very nice indeed. And what a pleasant contrast for so many of these trail runners. They always see the man or the woman who starts them in the race, and they're probably the next person they see at the end of the race. But it's a very different story here in Zegama. There are people covering every inch of this 42-kilometer course.
Yeah, and the crowd will be building and building and building up to Sancta Spiritu. You see Remy Bonnet there, took a gel out. Clever tactics by him. Now that he's on the smoother running, where he doesn't have to worry so much about looking where his feet goes, it's the perfect opportunity to take that gel on. You can concentrate on ripping the top off and actually refueling, because the 3.5 hours of racing, you need to keep some petrol in that engine. And wow, he really is motoring now. As he hits the crowds, he's going to be just getting so much energy from the crowd. In a very popular champion coming through, they're all going to know who Remy Bonnet is. But look at that technique. Arms out wide for balance. Just flowing down there, not having to work at all. Remy waving still at the crowd. He's loving this and picking up more energy. That's probably why he took his gel. He knew the aid station was coming in, so he was ensuring he took on all his nutrition before he then picked up some more. He is enjoying this.
Yeah, and as you say, very unlike him to acknowledge this. It's almost like it's a farewell race for Bonnet, but he's soaking up the atmosphere. I think most athletes would try and conserve energy. Just stay relaxed all the way.
He's clearly missed this, right? It's been a long time since he's led the Golden Trail, and this is pure joy. You do not do this unless you are feeling very confident and that you feel that you've got, like, he is in his absolute prime right now and feeling like he can't be stopped.
Yeah, you might as well feed off it rather than be irritated by it. There are certainly people who feel that the spectators sometimes get in the way, cost them energy. That is certainly going to be the case. They're absolutely packed on this climb. And this, of course, a really important section because it is the climbing segment where there are points to be won.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if Valentine Ruto, if we can see her on camera when she first comes through this. I remember when Robert Kimoy first faced this wall of sound. He was so blown away. It is absolutely overwhelming on your senses.
Yeah, one of the issues is just containing yourself. There's a little stumble from Remy Bonnet, but up and going again. Obviously not too fatigued at this stage. Still plenty of spring in those legs. 1 hour 45 gone, coming up towards the halfway stage.
It's a 600-meter climb they're going through, extremely steep, and you can see there is mud there. It is slippery. You do have to stay focused. I mean, to be running at this speed still, very impressive display from Bonnet. Now, I remember back in 2023 when Remy was leading at this stage, Robert Kimoy decided to attack Remy on this climb. He led for about 50 meters, and I think that is when he almost poked the bear, and Remy said, I'll show you what I've got. I'd love to see this split compared to previous years. It wouldn't surprise me if Remy is breaking all records right now on this climb. And we're back with our female leader here, Tove Alexandersson. I mean, looking extremely fast here. The fact she's got some athletes ahead of her, an advantage as well. She can see the racing line, which will help her flow through this section faster. But you can see there, she just looks so effortless. And Sara Alonso in second place. Still looking good, you know, breathing well, not looking too fatigued, and looking very clean in comparison.
Yeah, Alonso doing well. 142.02, is that right? Just checking on Alexander. 142.16 through a rat. Now, we're going to have a chat with Kilian Jornet in a moment. He has dropped off the pace. Last time we saw, he was 145, 146 off the lead of Remy Bonnet, but he had lost touch with the two athletes that were with him. And so Jornet so far has had a bit of a struggle. Let's see what he's got to say about this race.
Yeah, it's fun. I was thinking that the first time I was racing here, I was 19 years old, and that's closer to my daughter's age than to my age now. So it's been a long time since I came here the first time, and I have not missed many occasions to come here. And it's because it's so special, the atmosphere. It's a race that it's organized by the village, and you really feel this connection between the race and the people of the village, and then like all these people coming from all over Euskadi, but not only, like from all all Spain and all over the world to witness the race, to share for the runners. It's something that it's really unique.
Well, it certainly is, and it's proving it again today as we hone in on Sara Alonso, the defending champion, trying to do something about the Swede Alexandersson, who's out front at the moment. We'll try and get you some splits going through Rats. We know Alexandersson was through in just over 1:42.15.
Yeah, but Sara's looking, she's attacking this downhill. You can see that a slightly different style to Tove. Sara moving a lot more, her feet, fast feet. It looks to me as if her legs are taking a little bit more punishment with her running technique on this downhill. Having to really focus on the terrain a little bit more than Tove seemed to. Tove just seemed to read it.
They just let gravity do the work. But I can tell you that the gap is now over 5.5 minutes. 5.5 minutes between Tove Alexandersson and last year's champion on screen, Sara Alonso. And Alonso has got work to do. She's attacking this downhill. She certainly won't have given up yet. But, you know, she knows as much about Alexandersson as everyone else. And she knows just how good the Swede is.
Yeah, and what we can say about Sara, she knows this course, but Sara is a very detail-orientated runner. She knows her statistics, and she will have a time in mind for every section of this course. She will know how to pace this to perfection, so she will be consistent and won't slow down at any point in this race. But Tove, remarkably, under the course record by 15 seconds, despite these conditions. Unbelievable racing right now. And to give you a sense of quite how good she is, we often talk about the difference between men's times and women's times at the top end of sport. Typically, you see a 10-11% difference between the fastest man in the world, the fastest woman in the world. At the World Championships last year, Tove arrived in trail, having not focused on it, and was only 8% slower than Fredrik Schanchard. 8%. Remarkable performance by her. It just shows how good she is against the best males in the world.
And really, Tove Alexandersson's only weakness, would you say, the fact that she's not done this race before? Yes, she's had a good look over the last week at sections of the course, but she's not run the race. She doesn't have those timings that you talk about with Alonso. Is that going to be her Achilles heel?
Yeah, she doesn't know the course, and orienteering is slightly different in that you tend to do shorter up and downhill sections, but fueling is a big difference. We saw when she first raced trail, she won the Sky. Her first race was winning the Sky Running World Championships back in 2017, I think it was. She only had 2 gels the whole time. And so that is an area she's had to really work on, is figuring out how to take on nutrition and what works for her. So she said she'd be using a mixture of nutrition out here. And so getting the fueling right could be the thing that undoes her. But she said at the World Championships, she took on approximately 80 grams of carbs an hour, which is pretty much perfection. You don't need to be pushing much more than that. Some people do, but actually the science has shown as long as you're getting 80, 90 grams of carbs an hour, that's all your body's burning. So we're kind of trying to pick out weaknesses to create the suspense for you, but it's very hard to find anything that could stop her. She's that good. But yeah, to give you context here, Sara running downhill, running well. Ahead of her, our friend from Norway, he won the downhill splits. He's one of the best downhill runners in the world. He won the downhill competitions in our finals 3 years ago. That's how good a descender he is. And yet Sara is not losing too much ground. from him. You know, Sara's really committing well to this downhill. I think she knows she has to keep the pace up, and she's aware that Judith Wieder and Marlon Osser are both very good descenders, especially in the wet. But Sara's looking great right now.
Yeah, talking about, just looks like Robsam of Norway is in third place for the women. 1:49.41 going through a rat. So that's 7 minutes 20 slower than the race leader, Tove Alexandersson. But two Scandinavians in the top three at the moment, with Spain sandwiched in between them with Sara Alonso.
Now we're finally getting some of the, we've talked about our segments and how, Kilian Jornet now on screen. I mean, he's not looking fatigued, he's looking fairly comfortable. Maybe he's come in today with just not the same level of fitness he's had in previous years. But we've had our sprint section times come in. Just to recap, if you win today, you get 200 points. Your top 4 races of the 7 count towards the finals. And there are 3 segments where the winner of that segment will get 10 points. So a significant difference when you think the win is 200 points, it's 188 for a second place. Remy Bonnet through first in the sprint section. So even on that slightly downhill, Remy was the fastest person, and significantly, Elhousine not in the top 5. Daniel Pattis not in the top 5. So as things stand, Remy Bonnet is not only leading the race, but he is at least 10 points ahead of his rivals. We can see Tove now bringing out her poles. Struggling to get them ready, but I wasn't sure whether she'd be using poles here. It's only Manu Marias who we know to be using poles in the men's at the front, but very significant here that she's brought her poles out. Yeah,
well, skiing is one of those 6 sports where she's won world title, ski orienteering and ski mountaineering. So she's got plenty of strength in the upper body, the triceps, the lats obviously playing a big part in that. And if she's going to carry them around the course, she might as well use them at some stage. But taking a long time to sort them out and get them into good effect. And actually, with all these fans, using sticks may be a bit of a problem that she wasn't predicting.
We were talking about how important race experience is. She has been up on the course. She would have seen this. But as you say, if she'd have raced this before, she'd have known when to bring those sticks out. She shouldn't have been fiddling around with her sticks while she's trying to climb. There was plenty of space before the turn for her to do that if she'd have known the course better. But as you say, is there going to be enough space here for her to really dig in and use these sticks to her advantage?
Yeah, what we really want to be hearing is the noise of the fans, because this is something else. Bonnet got a good reception, but Tove Alexandersson, the news has spread that she is on Zegama record schedule at the moment. 20 seconds inside last time we saw. It's going to be tough to keep that going with the mud and the tricky descents. But Alexandersson doing exactly what we were expecting from her. She's over 5.5 minutes clear of last year's champion, Alonso. What a performance.
And she said this was the part of the race that she was actually going to be a little bit scared of. She said she's not used to crowds. She's not a big fan of crowds. We're basically looking at one of the calmest racers on earth in one of the noisiest sections of trail anywhere in the world.
I think we're going to have a chat with Tove Alexandersson herself. Here she is, the women's leader.
When I'm running downhill, you can't think anything else, just like focus. The main races for me, I'm doing it for 100% and will go all in for it. I don't like mud so much, but I hope I will like it after Sunday. So because I think it will be a lot of it. Yeah, Zegama is a race I always wanted to run. So this year, when I focus more on trail running, I really wanted to go here. I think it's a really strong field this year, so it will be an exciting race. But for the moment, I'm more focusing on my own and also to handle the course in the best possible way. So yeah, I think it will be an interesting race.
Well, she was right about one thing. There is going to be a lot of mud at some stage, and some of those falls make you wince, David. I just hope she stays in one piece come the end of this race. Sara Alonso may be hoping that, you know, the conditions get the better of the Swede come the end of this race. Alonso certainly not giving up at this stage, still pushing hard on the downhill sections.
Just look how fast she is running. Now, she's going to be coming through the St. Adrian Cave quite soon. It's very, very slippery. But she is absolutely flying right now, clearly pacing this to perfection. Now, you mentioned some of those falls with Tove. That looked like a compilation of a lifetime's worth of spills. All of that footage is from one race. That's how often she fell the last time she ran Golden Trail. And yet she still bounced back, and that's how she attacks this course. I was asking her what it is about her that allows her, even though she falls repeatedly, it never stops her attacking every single race. And she just says that she just sees falling as part of trail running, as part of racing, and she never feels the pain in the moment. And so it's just a feedback loop for her on how to adapt her footing. She sees it as it's not painful, it's not something to fear, it's just part of racing that she accepts, and it doesn't slow her down in any way, which is why she can be so aggressive on these downhills. Now we should be seeing Sara Alonso coming through very soon. She's coming up to Sancta Spiritu. If you thought there were loud roars for Reme, for Tove, wait until Sara Alonso, last year's champion, the local runner, goes through Sancta Spiritu. It will be deafening, and she will draw energy from that for the climb.
Here we go, approaching the base of the climb. Still don't have a time for Tove Alexandersson on the climb, so that would suggest that she's not hit the high point quite yet.
Listen to that crowd, that roar.
Let's add a pair of arm warmers coming out, as she knows the temperature is going to drop before the top of the climb. Not quite sure what's going on there. Again, hasn't chosen the best of moments to do that.
And you see that power hiking now. I mean, she's moving, I dare to say she's moving better than Tove was. I think that the sticks were a distraction for Tove, and actually the simplicity of putting your hands on your legs and being able to stomp up is really, really looking like it's a good tactic here. She looks completely unfazed by this crowd, doesn't she? She's not looking left to right. We can't see her face, but her body language just seems relaxed right now, which is crazy when you think of the noise. And that was her mother. I think that was Ida and her mum on the right. She just ran past, I believe.
Yeah, very different from the leader of the men's race, Remy Bonnet, who's doing 360s at this stage, soaking up the atmosphere. This segment of climbing, 2.51k, as you can see. And
21% climb. And that is her old Salomon team manager filming there, the great friend of hers. One of the reasons in the journey of how Sara has become so good at trail running. He was heavily involved with her in the sport in the early years. Now, Sara's nickname is actually Lungs. She used to be a football player, and she just could... Lungs because of her ability to keep on running. Lungs also, I believe, because Sara doesn't stop talking when she's not running. So...
Might have something to do with her swimming career as well. Fairly typical pass, football to swimming to trail running.
And, you know, another good tactic here. It looks like she's taken out some nutrition. When you're not able to move that fast, you might as well have a gel. Yeah, wow, she just demolished that gel. That was gone in, what, 5 seconds? And back out. Incredible.
What scenes, what scenes. Unique in the world of trail running, pretty unique in terms of all sport, to be honest.
Second and third now, Daniel Pattis, Elhousine on his shoulder. Second and third, still hunting. Elhousine wearing shades. I've not seen him race like this before. This is a new... I wonder what the significance of that is. I wonder why he's chosen to have shades on.
Well, he must do 99% of his running in the sun. Not today, up in the clouds.
Surely, when you need to be able to see underfoot so clearly, I can't be a good thing to be wearing shades. How much of a lead does Remy have, though? How far ahead is he? They won't be able to hear from the crowds. They'll be deafened. They won't have a sense of how far ahead or behind those noises are.
Couple of walking steps from Remy Bonnet, but generally his foot placement is good. Daniel Pattis in the yellow. Elazzaoui just behind him. I thought Elhousine was starting to look a bit more comfortable on that last section, and he's just been sitting 10-15 meters behind Pattis for the last 20-30 minutes. So obviously not phased that he's given a little bit of time away to Pattis, but he will be, you know, certainly be interested in where the race leader Remy Bonnet is at the moment, and we'll give you those splits as soon as we can. We should get them in fairly shortly.
Yeah, when they came through the bottom of Sanctus Spiritu and picked up their gels, typically information is then passed from team manager, from coach, from nutritionist. So they would have said to them, he's a minute ahead, he's 1:30 ahead. You suspect they'll know where he is. But yeah, you see the confidence of Elhousine. He's just happy to sit back. You can see here Daniel having to choose the route. Daniel in yellow, a few stumbles there, and that's where being behind is a huge advantage. You're not having to decide where to run. You can then just observe what your competition is doing and follow them without having to do the mental work. But sometimes the front runner will choose a slightly slower route, will slightly fall, will slightly stumble, will actually take a longer turn, and it allows Elhousine to just pick his line and save a yard every turn, every corner, and just save that energy that really helps over the course of a marathon.
The number of times we've seen Elazzaoui get ahead of Kipingino and Kiriago in the closing stages of a race just by sitting back, and as soon as they make the smallest mistake, he's through, and there's no comeback from there because he's got a fantastic finish. Kilian Jornet, he was 1:45 behind last time we saw. We'll get another readout from 22K over the top of Aizkorri, and we will see, but it doesn't look as though he's on for the win at the moment. Marillis.
And this is Taylor Stack as well. Taylor's still up there, so now a group of 3 in the hunting. You know, Manu Marias up there with Kilian, only 2 minutes behind is not much. Manu is incredibly good on the wet. He's won here before. He's actually beaten Elhousine on the downhill to win. And so 2 minutes. Good positioning for Manu. He'll be happy with Kilian as his tour guide, and it wouldn't surprise me if, you know, this last third of the race, Manu starts to eat into that lead. So while Elhousine is happy sat behind Daniel Pattis, he needs to be aware that they can't hang around with Manu behind them. And Robert Kimoy coming up now. You know, he loves this race. He's finished here many times before, keeps on returning, and the fact he's wearing a longer layer is because, like Remy, he's had some horrific times here before.
Well, let's hope we can get a chat with Elhousine Elazzaoui.
Pour moi, retourner chaque année à Zegama, c'est un grand plaisir. Et cette année, c'est l'anniversaire de Zegama, ça va être quelque chose vraiment de grand. Et j'ai toujours beaucoup d'amour retourner à cette course. Et je pense que, bien sûr, tous les athlètes qu'ils ont ici, ils ont tout fort. Ça va être des athlètes nouveaux. Parce que pour moi, par exemple, c'est la première course que j'ai fait cette année. Cette année pour la Golden. Et je ne sais pas encore les nouveaux athlètes, mais ça va être un grand bataille. Oui, bien sûr, je suis content de courir encore avec Kilian ici à Zegama.
And he's very happy to run against Kilian here. He has good memories from Zegama, and so he should, having won last year. And it's not, his history isn't just about last year. The last few years he's been threatening the win, getting on the podium, but he got top spot last year, and certainly still in the running for the win.
And this looks like this. Ooh, who have we got here? Yeah, I mean, if you're wondering how a Moroccan Berber, you know, he does live in the desert. His family, their business is tourism, going around on camels. They move their house, but Elhousine also lives in Switzerland, so he is experienced to terrain like this. In fact, Elhousine, he was discovered when some tourists were with the group, on his dad's tourist camel riding experience, and they asked him to go and get some water, and just saw how fluid he ran and said, why doesn't he become a runner? And that was the moment that changed Elhousine's life. It's quite a remarkable story. But we're back with Remy Bonnet. Snow at the top. We haven't seen that for some years, but you can see now quite how difficult it is to run across this terrain. Like, how do you choose the route? You can see the flags, but there isn't an obvious path. And if you're not confident flowing through this, you can really lose minutes and minutes. This is another section that could be a disadvantage for Tove. She's got her poles. If she doesn't know the course well, not knowing when to put your poles away, it could be a few more seconds where she has to try and figure that out, put them back in her bum bag. You can see Remy slipping a bit, maybe a sign of fatigue.
Yeah, possibly. And again, Just a slight mistake there that will frustrate him. But to be honest, 2 days ago, there was way more snow than this up here. There was some discussion about changing the course. They all obviously have a contingency for the highest part of the course, just in case the conditions are too dangerous. But the decision was made yesterday that the original course could run. That obviously satisfies all the spectators and the runners as well, because it means a record attempt is on if the conditions allow, which they don't really, but everyone really wanting to run the classic Zegama, and that's what we've got today. Bonnet, little bit tentative over these rocks.
Yeah, it's moving very slowly right now. Caution, maybe there was a slight fall before we didn't see, but this is the hardest sector. There's about 2 kilometers where you go across here, and one of the big decisions our athletes have coming into a race like this is, oh, and there's our splits. Wow, Remy Bonnet not leading. That is a surprise.
But that was the climbing split. So Elazzaoui winning that segment.
Yeah, but that's the stage you suspect. If Remy's going to win this race, he needed to be putting more distance between him and the opposition. We know he's not as good a descender as Elhousine Elazzaoui or as even Daniel Pattis, and so Manu Marias. So the fact that he's not been putting distance and the way he's running across this, I think he has gone out too hard. I think he is fatiguing. You know, Remy Bonnet is a good enough climber to be winning the uphill split. So maybe a mistake early on by him.
Tove Alexandersson, the leading woman, and 2:17 on the clock. Fastest time 4:16, so at least 2 hours still to go. And she's looking pretty good. This Elazzaoui, same vest, of course, as Kilian Jornet, so don't confuse those two.
Yeah, and that's not blood on his top. That is, for some reason, they've designed a top that looks like you've been to a slaughterhouse. So
there might well be some by the end of today, but yeah, exactly my first impression.
But you can see here that, you know, again, Elhousine was sat behind Daniel Pattis. And when it is so hard to pick a line, it's very useful to have a scout ahead of you, making the mistakes, making all the decisions on your behalf. But very hard scrambling. And this is the area that Manu Marias knows better than anyone. He's not quite local, but he has raced this more than anyone else. He will be flying across all this terrain. It wouldn't surprise me if he actually knows rock by rock where he'll go on each section.
Well, I was just about to say that, you know, you learn trails, you learn the sharp corners, the steep drops, the brutal climbs, but you cannot memorize all these rocks, and it's just as hard the 5th time as it was the 1st.
And we talk about how, you know, you see Daniel's pulling away a little bit here. You know, I'm sure that's partly, but again, a small mistake again by Remy, slightly gone in the wrong direction. And a lot of races this long, it's about conserving energy and also feeling positive. And if you're cold, you're exposed up there. If you're slightly tired, every little mistake like that becomes frustrating. It starts to build a narrative in your head. You start to drop your head and you don't have the confidence you had before.
Well, Alexandersson still with the poles out and using them pretty effectively at the moment. Struggled to get them through the crowds earlier on and picking off male competitors one after the other. She is producing yet another remarkable run. We will get updates as soon as we can. Still waiting for the 22-kilometer marker to come through for the women.
And just look at this pole technique. If you want to know how to use poles well, like when she's running, she's not using the poles. She's only using them when she gets an advantage. And you can see from her body position, she's leaning slightly forward so she can fully drive through the poles there. You know, this is someone who knows how to eke out every slight advantage, and she's racing up there using her arms. This can save up to 30% energy if you use it well on your legs. So not only is she moving quicker, she's going to have more energy in her legs and more glycogen reserves to use later in the race. So a huge advantage here that she's able to use her poles. None of the other top females with poles.
Yeah, the absolute key there, David, is saving the legs for later on. Most people use the poles nowadays for walking downhill. These athletes are going down too fast, really, to use the poles effectively, and it can be quite dangerous on this sort of terrain. But on the uphill, if you can save those quads just a little bit, it will make a difference for the downhill race. And again, Tove Alexandersson gets the crowd going as she comes to the top of Aizkorri, the high point of the course, up into the snow level just, although there was a fair amount here 48 hours ago.
And this is just wonderful to watch. I've never seen anyone come up this hill with such pace. And, you know, Mane Marias is good with poles, but there's a difference between someone who is a trail runner who uses poles and someone who is a skimo world champion, who is a ski orienteering world champion. Like this, you know, her upper body is trained to get the most out of these poles as much as her legs are trained to running on terrain and trail.
Yeah. Ski mountaineering, of course, part of the Olympic Games last year. Personally, I thought it was a little bit disappointing. These are the sort of scenes that we needed to see, and I don't quite understand why the Italians couldn't replicate them, although the conditions obviously would have been crucial. But this is what, you know, the ski mountaineering world is all about: brutal uphills and very, very fast technical downhills. It was a tame event.
There's the handoff.
Away go the poles, and a couple of extra gels.
Interesting, yeah, she's taking on more nutrition than she thought she would. A bit of extra water. Yeah, clever.
And that probably an indication of lack of experience, because otherwise she would have known exactly where that drink stop was.
Yeah, but I guess that's a promptu decision, when she thought, actually, I'm thirstier than I thought I would be. One question, you know, Remy Bonnet, in terms of skimo, untouchable, multiple back-to-back world championships, and yet he doesn't use poles when he runs. I wonder why. You know, he clearly is someone who is able to, very used to using his upper body, but just decides his running technique isn't one he wants to use poles with.
Well, I guess if you've got the strength in your legs, use it. You know, you are then asking your heart and lungs to supply oxygen to an extra third of your body, which otherwise can stay relatively relaxed.
Yeah, true. And we saw how hunched over she was to be able to pull through. And the fact that she's got some runners around her can be an advantage, picking out the line, but potentially you sometimes get people cutting you up. So let's hope that she can work with this runner in front of her now. But look at the speed she's flowing through here. Just so fluid. And this is extremely hard to run through at all. And yet she's not losing any pace. Incredible trail running. She's just clawing up that mountain. Now, 2 years ago, when Sylvia Nordskar won Zegama, before that, we had Therese Leboeuf leading out. And neither of those had ever led a Golden Trail series. And Therese took to the front and said as soon as she hit the front, everything changed. And she suddenly thought about how much it meant to her to be leading a Golden Trail. And all the energy evaporated from her. And she said she couldn't run for another 10K or so. And it took her that long to get over the mental aspect. And she did return, finished top 3. But you wonder whether Tove, as a champion of so many different sports, if it even registers with her quite how big a deal this is.
I completely see where you're coming from, but I you know, she's won so many big events in her time, and I can't see that affecting her. And when you come from an orienteering background where one mistake can cost you 10 places, let alone one, and cost you a title, I think you just get used to being in a position of jeopardy, and you know, where things can go wrong so quickly, and learning how to cope with it. Her decision making is so fast. She's a human computer when she's out there on the orienteering trail. And I think similar things happen when she's running downhill. And you can see here, keeping up with some very, very high-class male athletes.
And if you think she'd normally have a map in her hand and she'd be reading that map while she's running this. I mean, it's no coincidence that World Trail Champion last year, Frederic Shanshan, another orienteer. Orienteers are so good. There goes Kilian flying through there. You know, Andre Bladis, who top 3 last year, also another orienteer. When you're having to read maps over terrain like this, your subconscious just gets used to reading the line, and she just hasn't looked like she's had to slow down at any point for anything. Now, I asked Tove where she keeps her medals. So 23 gold medals at World Orienteering, 10 gold medals at ski orienteering, trail, skimo, sky snow. She said the medals are at my parents' house, at my apartment, in boxes, unpacked bags, on cabinets, among my training clothes. Basically, they're everywhere because she has so many. She hasn't even got a place to put them because they spill out. But she said that the moment she was most proud of is winning all 5 golds at the World Orienteering Championships in 2021. It's the last time there was going to be a full program before it split into 2 different championships every other year. So she's the last person ever to get a clean sweep of all of the golds. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, 11 world orienteering titles in succession. No one else has achieved that, and just phenomenal. She was that run has come to an end, but you know, when you can make one tiny mistake, as I say, and that can change the outcome dramatically, it just shows what class she is. And yeah, never really has any time off. You know, it goes from the trail running to the ski orienteering to the ski mountaineering. It's an endless season.
Yeah, the reason why she's switched to trail this year is because they have changed when the races are. Yeah, this year's World Orienteering Championships is sprint only, and she's decided to drop the sprint as a major focus for her, which frees her up time to come and do this. But when she talks about the training she does, you know, she does a huge amount of training, but she said the only real difference she has made in her training to get her ready for these longer races, because we have seen over the last 2 seasons her doing longer and longer runs. You know, the World Championships last year was approximately marathon distance. The main thing she said is that she just increased the distance of her tempo runs. And that's a very different approach to a lot of other athletes. We see people as they're going up to this ultra distance, this marathon distance, they build the longer runs and they increase their total volume. But it seems that Tove has decided that it's really the race effort that she needs to increase, because she already had the volume there. Like Kilian, she loves being out in trail so much, out in the mountains, that volume was never an issue for her.
Yeah, and the other advantage of taking that approach, although the high speed, high tempo work can create injuries, but if you're cutting down on the volume, or not increasing that volume dramatically, you would hope that you reduce the injuries and issues on those lines.
Yeah, it's a very good point. The way athletes have thought about injuries and training load, it has been changing through the years. A lot of our listeners will know about our viewers will know about the 10% rule, and in theory never increasing your load by more than 10%. But some recent analysis has been showing that actually it tends to be that longer run it's the longest run in your program that is more likely to induce the injury. But also that when you're thinking about your training load, you really should be thinking about not just the mileage, but the intensities. And if you think of your scores out of 10 for how hard something is, you times the mileage of your fast runs by how you'd score it out of 10. So like a really hard tempo run, you might put a 9, so 9 miles. 9 times your 10 miles equals 90, whereas your longer run might be a 7 out of 10 in terms of intensity. So you times the miles of that times a 7 to then figure out your overall training load and use that score as your assessment of the 10% increase. I don't know if I explained that well, but hopefully, hopefully, I think
I'm with you.
In my head it made sense.
I'm with you. And what about the double interval sessions?
Yeah, that is becoming more common. I think less so in trail. And I mean, Sara's looking great here. This is where the frustration with someone with sticks ahead of you can be annoying. There's not space for her to move through. I'm hoping that runner is aware that Sara's there and lets her through should she need to pass. We've seen with the Norwegian method, a lot of approach has changed towards your top end speed, and athletes now are doing double days where they're holding back a little bit on the intensity of their intervals, of their tempo runs, to allow them to do another session in the afternoon and increase the total volume at race pace.
Yeah, that was the section there. Alonso's just gone through. She pretty much ignored the drink stop. I think she did pick up an extra gel or two, but Tove Andersson went through there. That must be 7 minutes ago. We'll try and get the exact readouts as soon as we can, but slight delay coming through on the live timing, as you might expect on a race of this nature.
There we get second and third place still together. It says head of the race. I just want to have confirmation of that.
Yeah, well, the last split I've got on my screen had Remy Bonnet down in third place, 2 minutes behind Pattis and Elazzaoui. Well, we never saw any overtake, and I wonder whether that was an injury caused to Remy Bonnet. But I would, like you, David, require confirmation that is the situation.
I mean, Remy was looking a lot slower across the top, but you wouldn't think he'd be shedding 2 minutes unless he really has blown up or something's happened. But these two now looking very relaxed. They've done the hardest climb, but it's a very, very steep climb up to Andreitz. And this was a similar position to last year. We've already spoken about how they've run together, but it was actually, they were in second and third place at this point of the race behind Andre Blanis. They all came together as they ran across the flat section by odds around the 25k mark. And it was at the point they came off Andreitz that Elhousine dropped the bomb. A complete change in gear. So I wonder if he's thinking the same now. But we're back with our second place runner, Sara Alonso, still looking strong. The question is, Not so much who's ahead of her, but how close are Judith Wieder, Marlon Ossa behind her. Very good descenders who'll be expecting to claw back time over the last third of this race.
Well, just to update you on the standings, I've got at the 23.2, which was some time ago, Pattis at 2:17.24, Elazzaoui 2:17.35. We've seen that, and we know that's the case. But Remy Bonnet 2:19.17, so 2 minutes down, having been a minute and a half clear. So something has happened to Remy Bonnet. Kilian Jornet went through 2:19.53, so he is 2.5 minutes off the race leaders. Tove Alexandersson, we know, leading the women. She went through in 2:33, and as yet, Sara Alonso has not reached that point. Maria Fuentes there, getting the crowd going again.
But we did see Marlon Ossa earlier on screen. The fact that she is up there already, she likes to start slowly. We've talked about the fact that she often has cramps. This, to me, is evidence that she is not having that issue today. And, you know, Marlon Ossa came second last year, a very, very good descender. So another person for Sara to be nervous about. But we don't know, Maria, she's not really featured in the top 5 before of a Golden Trail race.
She raced in Gran Canaria at the beginning of March, put in a really good performance there, finished second in that. So she's in decent form, and she won the Swiss Canyon Trail. What's that? That's over 33K. So, you know, she's got quite a good pedigree over distance.
Yeah, and we typically see with Spanish runners all good on technical terrain. There's so many mountain ranges nearby, and Marlon Ossa there we believe in 3rd place, flowing through. Cameraman struggling to stick with her, and she's got gloves on as well. I think this is great. These rocks are very sharp, and just being able to, we'll see with Marlon, her technique often is to grab the rock and to use that, a bit like you'd use poles, but to jump around, a bit of rock climbing. There we see she's using it for balance, and having gloves just means that you can put your hands down with confidence.
Yeah, and the downhill, as the race goes on, the downhills, even if they're the same technicality, they become harder and harder because your legs are responding just that millisecond slower, and the foot placement not quite as accurate as it would have been in the early stages. There you see the final climb, Alexandersson 2:23.09, Sara Alonso 10:07. Wow. Again,
yeah,
inflicting damage.
Judith Wieder just off the back as well, a very, very good descender, and also someone else who knows how to pace their race. So, and Teresa Buff back in 10th, surprised to see her so far back. But she's a mum of, I think, 2 or 3 children, and you know, not a full-time athlete. So, but Judith Wieder on screen now, coming up to the top of the climb of Aizkorri.
Yeah, remarkable comeback from Vida. I was just going to talk about her, you know, well-publicised stroke that she had. To make a comeback at all from that's amazing, but it did end up affecting her eyesight, which is essentially why she switched from orienteering to trail running, because she couldn't read the map as clearly or as quickly as she used to.
Yeah, she has said that it can affect her downhill. One of her eyes still is not, she doesn't have 20/20 vision anymore, and so she can't attack quite as aggressively. On a route like this, while it is very rocky across the top, we can see Sara here, because you're not flowing quite as quickly, you don't need to I don't think this will slow Judith down. And on the downhills that are muddier, being able to see the ground is not quite as important. So I don't think it will affect her as much today. She'll be able to use the full force of her speed.
Yeah. Vida, of course, the runner-up last year behind Sara Alonso, who was in your picture just a second ago. Who's this? Is this Marlon Ossa?
This is Marlon Ossa, that's right. So, you know, our top three from last year still all in the hunt for podium places.
But it looks as only two of them are going to make it, with Alexandersson out front for Sweden.
Now we're just having some updates versus the course records. I mean, Tove at the moment is 3.5 minutes under the course record. I mean, look at the conditions out there. There's snow, there's mud. We've seen how much mud she has on her already. It just shows how good she is. Her debut on this course. I mean, to be fair to Nienke Brinkman, the current course record holder, she didn't know the course when she ran either, but it was very, very dry.
Yeah, and the fact that both the men and the women's record went in the same year tell you that the conditions were good.
And you know, Nienke, she was European marathon champion, extremely good climber. And I don't think she'll mind me saying she's not known for her downhill. So the fact she's 3 minutes under course record before Tove's unleashed her downhill at all, this record could be absolutely dismantled today.
Yeah, the women's record 4:16.43. So Tove Andersson with an hour and a half's racing still to go if she's going to match that.
I mean, knowing Tove, unless something happens, I mean, sub 4:10, sub 4:5, she's that good at descending. And
give her a good year, sub 4 hours. That would be a little bit of history.
Yeah, and we've already talked about the fact that she will give everything to the finish line. You know, Nienke, when she raced it, she knew she had a good lead over Maud Mathis. And actually that year, it was Sara Alonso in third who was closing them in. You know, Sara had the best last 10K of all three of them. So, you know, Tove, orienteers are used to sprinting through to the line because they don't know where the competition is. So Tove gets 5 minute, 10 minute off the record, potentially. But Sara, looking, you know, she's still attacking. She's really committing on this terrain. You can see, if we thought about how Remy came through here, you know, Sara is really giving it her all here. And that's one of the elements. Yeah, that's one of the elements that makes Sara such a good athlete. I can't think of many runners who can just reach a point of pain and push through it. She just drives and drives and drives. When you see her face racing, she just looks like she's in the red zone, about to collapse, and still powers on.
Yeah, still waiting for Alonso's time to come through from the 23.2 marker, which obviously just over the halfway point. Alexandersson going through in 2:33.42. Here's Daniel Pattis now.
He's looking smooth still, isn't he? I mean, look at that running flow. The very different style. He's got a slightly longer stride to Elhousine, but even his hair, everything's just flowing beautifully. He's not looking tired, but the question he'll have in his mind is, he's running well, Elhousine's running well, but is Elhousine just in second gear? And look at, so relaxed behind Elhousine.
Yeah, Elhousine, he's dangerous, isn't he there? But Pattis, what? He's already done 4 races this year. which I think is considerably more than we've seen from Elhousine. I wonder whether that is a factor today. And yeah, he's produced some decent results. He was second in the Chianti 46K behind Pupi, and that's no mean achievement. So he's obviously on good form.
And it's worth considering, unless something's changed this season, Daniel's not a full-time athlete. He's goes, I think, the university in Innsbruck is a technical, in the technical team there, working on metals. You know, he fits all this racing in and around his a full-time job. But we're back with Sara Alonso in second place here. Still trying to press every yard. Build up that gap over third place. Now we're going to be hearing from Sara in just a few seconds. If you don't know the rest of this course, so at the moment Sara is around 18k from the finish, a very steep descent coming, and we're back with our race leaders coming up to the base of the final big climb, which would be up to Andretz. And it was at this point when Elhousine made his attack last year. Will he do the same today?
Well, here is Sara Alonso, who of course is second place in the women's at the moment and the champion last year.
Zegama was one of the reasons why I started trail running, and last year when I see myself winning that race, it was like a dream come true. I remember like it was yesterday, but the reality is that Zegama is close. It's really, really close. This is my trail running museum, and the most important part is this, and especially the axe of Zegama. It's just a week for Zegama, and as every important competition, I'm testing myself here at home in a 10K that goes to the top of the mountain, and it has 1,400 meters of climbing. This is a really key session for me because I'm comparing with myself with the best times I got previous to big races. So I really hope I can be on my times or even better. Super personal record. 3 minutes faster.
I mean, Sara is obsessed with her stats. She knows her numbers. I mean, she's got a 1:11 half marathon time for reference, but she'll know the splits she'll be intending on a course. She is a data-focused person, but also just a wonderful person, as you can get a sense of from that video.
Yeah, nice pictures and a good insight into the life of a very, very serious top-class athlete. Her house was a whole lot tidier than mine. And yeah, really, really nice pictures. It's going to be interesting to see what she can do in the closing stages of this Zegama race for 2026. Looks as though one of last year's champions might get their own way this year.
And is this the break? Has Elhousine, he's gone? Is he broken free? It looks as if... No.
I think they're still on the up. I think they're still on the uphill, but Elhousine has got closer than he's been for a long time. He can now smell the breath of Daniel Pattis up ahead of him, and Pattis knows that there's one man he doesn't want on his shoulder. It's probably Elhousine. Kilian Jornet is too far behind at the moment.
How frustrating will this be? 25% climb. This is it's around a 150-meter climb up to Andreit's. Punishing, but it feels like the inevitable's about to happen, doesn't it? Pattis
it certainly does, but I thought Pattis has looked pretty good on the downhill sections so far, and certainly on the free running sections he's looked beautifully smooth, but he can now hear the breathing of Elazzaoui behind him.
And this looks like Manu Marias, the man with his poles. He'll be hoping to claw back, and you know, if Daniel's pulled into a fight where he burns too much energy, it's Manu who'll be wanting to come back. But we saw in the first year that the Elhousine won the series. He never committed early in races, and he had quite a few back and forths with Patrick Kipinino, a sprint finish, the Elhousine won. With Philemon Carriego, a sprint finish, the Elhousine won twice. It wasn't until the race in Noli last year that anyone beat Elhousine on a sprint finish, where Philemon finally outsprint him. So the top end speed that Elhousine has, he's a 28-minute 10K. I think he could get sub 28 now. You know, he's got such fast running speed, and all those saved seconds and saved energy where he's been sat behind, he can then unleash with such a devastating deployment of a change of gear. It's impressive to see.
Will it happen today, though? Still just over 12 kilometers to go in the 25th edition of the Zegama Marathon. And Daniel Pattis looks as though he's waiting for the inevitable. He looked over his shoulder a minute or so back, David. First time we've seen Pattis look behind him. He's been very, very focused on the trail in front. And just a slight sign that the fatigue is starting to hit him. The tempo has slowed. It's understandable. It's so steep here. 25% the gradient. It would slow most of us to a stop. But these guys keep on going. Just under 3 hours on the clock at the moment. Pattis ahead of Elazzaoui. And up into third place, Marilis, who's certainly making ground. Remy Bonnet is dropped back into 4, having had a minute and a half lead earlier on, and we've got Taylor Stack of USA sitting in 5 ahead of Kemwa from Kenya, who's certainly starting to make ground, and Kilian Jornet, the 11-time champion, down in 7th place at the moment.
Is this Kilian we're looking at now? It certainly was the NNormal strip, and it looked like he was not attacking that descent. Surprising to see. Has he got a game plan? Because he's had a whole year knowing that this would almost certainly be the position he'd be in. So what has he been planning? What has this strategy been? How was he gonna find something different? But this is the next segment, our third segment of the day. 10 points on offer. As you can see, quite a steep gradient down, and if you throw in mud on top of that, 21% descent with mud. This is going to be slick, quick, potentially some spills.
And it will take us to within 10 kilometers of the finish. Similar, same team shirt for Kilian Jornet as for Elazzaoui. So don't be confused. Don't expect to see Pattis' yellow bib in front. And Kilian Jornet some way off the pace today. It was fairly early on that he didn't look to be in his best shape.
Yeah, and he must have known this coming in, and just gives you even more respect for him. Think of how many athletes there are out there that will only turn up if they know they can win. They don't want a blemish on their record. They don't want to jog home not the victor. But Kilian's out here, still running, still racing, and the same to Remy Bonnet. You know, the fact he came out here and he ran to win. He's clearly struggling now, very tired, but he put everything on the line here, and it's now catching up with him. That early pace where he was a minute under the course record. Could he have gone out 30 seconds slower and still be challenging for the win if he'd done that?
Well, he certainly could have done. Whether it would have made any difference, we'll never know. But I did mention that he faded badly in that Grand Trail Ventoux and lost a huge amount of time, dropping from first down to 17th on that occasion. And I don't think he's going to drop as low as 17th today, but it's not the win. It's not going to be the win that he wanted. Of course, he won back in 2018 in a time of 3:53. What do you think we're looking at for the winning time today, David? Obviously not going to be near the record with these conditions, but it's still a pretty healthy time, a decent pace being set by Daniel Pattis.
Yeah, and their downhill will be quick. You know, it partly depends if they're going to be. Does Elhousine get a slight lead and then just sit on it, or if they attack each other the whole way down? 3:22. You know, if we look at what the record is, I don't think they'll be that far behind. So 3:40, 3:45. Remy Bonnet only 35 seconds behind. That's not bad. Given that
that's
he's coming
different.
back.
Well, that's very different from the last time splits. But if he's back to 35 seconds, he's in a good position, although he's run out of uphill, which is where he generally makes his time. And now the speed starts to build.
Yeah, and this is where, you know, Daniel's, he needs to slowly increase his pace and wear Elhousine out. He needs to take the sting out of that tail. We saw in the final 2 years ago when we had Remy Bonnet, Elhousine, Patrick Kipignino all together. When they hit the top of the final descent, Elhousine had a completely different gear to anyone else and just flew through people. And this is great to see. I mean, look at this technique now. This is incredibly steep, as we saw in the stats earlier, 22 to 25% descent. And Daniel flowing really well here. He needs to somehow maintain this pace and not allow Elhousine to get up on his shoulder, because we know of the sprint speed and that 10k pace of Elhousine. But if Daniel can run almost time trial now to the finish. But yeah, there you saw Elhousine cut the corner, a slight advantage again.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is what you were talking about earlier on. By having someone in front, if they go a long way round, you can just nip the corner, gain a tenth or even a half of a second, and it makes a massive, massive difference. And Elhousine has that advantage at the moment. But sitting back 15, 20 meters, looking comfortable. Pattis, is he panicking at this stage? He's still got over 10k to go.
It is a very fast descent. We talk about the gradient here, but it doesn't really relent. And all the way into our finish line, the road is extremely fast. If he can flow and not tighten, there's a chance he could just maintain that lead over Elhousine. I mean, Remy Bonnet, the fact that he's reduce that time, if those splits are correct, that's going to give him confidence. That's going to really help him. And while Remy...
if you compare their movement, how would you say Remy is moving at the moment compared to what we saw from Pattis and, of course, Elazzaoui just minutes ago?
I mean, this is classic Remy climbing style. It's very smooth. He doesn't look like he's got his head down at all. And while Remy isn't known as a technical descender, once he gets clean through these rocks, we saw how fluid Daniel Pattis was running down these trails. Remy Bonnet can flow as well, and when he won his 2 series championships, people were surprised quite how quickly he could run over smooth terrain, and he is losing. He's got a disadvantage for this next 3, 4, 5, 600 meters, but as soon as it gets to that greener, more runnable sections, Remy can still reel people in. But behind them, this is the man who is good technically. He's getting rid of his poles, his bamboo sticks. Manu Marias refueling because he is gonna unleash hell, and this man can run over all terrain with incredible speed. But he wasn't handing over with panic. He's refueling knowing there's a long battle ahead.
Yeah, Marias was up into 3rd position. Bonnet had at that time dropped down into 4, but those positions have reversed again.
Taylor Stack coming through, still in the top 5, looking a bit tired. He showed in our finals last year that he can descend well as well. The fact he's got Manu ahead of him, someone to chase, those two, if they can work together, could start to really ebb and like dig into that lead that Remy has. Now we have our split starting to come through at the 28.5k mark, so around 14k to go, less than 10 miles to go. So we should be able to give you an exact insight into the lead that our front 2 have over Remy Bonnet and Taylor Stack.
Elazzaoui and Pattis locked together, no more than a second separating them. Remy Bonnet is, what, 2.5 minutes down at the moment. So that 30-second split we had earlier was incorrect. It's a 2.5 minute gap. And then Marias is back at 3:01:38. And so he is 4.5 minutes behind. Lots of work to do, but it's a really tough 10K.
Very, very fast, and especially if you're cramping, if you haven't fueled correctly, if you have committed too much to those downhills and your muscles are already ripping apart, very hard. But here he is, Kilian. The crowd is, his crowd are loving him. Also in shades. It seems it's there must have been a memo going out to NNormal. Wear shades today.
Well, I wonder whether it's a new thing about reducing the amount of dehydration. Now, we should be having a chat with Kilian Jornet shortly and talking about the contenders in the race. And no one knows more about the opposition than Kilian Jornet himself.
I think like I was very nervous probably like 2007, 8, 9, 10, but after a while, like I think it just, you know, that you go to a race and it can be a good day or a bad day. It's nothing you can do, but I will enjoy it the same. This year, the field, it's very exciting. It's a very good field of competitors, and I think from home, like Elhousine is always like one of the most performing athletes, and he's very good in technical terrain. Conditions will be harsh, so he will be performing very well, I'm sure. But also, like, we have people like Remy Bonnet that has been winning here, Manu Marias that, especially in these conditions, can be very hard to beat. Davide Magnini that has the second best time in the race. De Lorenzi. We have so many people. I think it will be a great battle because we have very fast athletes, but also like very technical athletes. And with these conditions, it will be kind of a lot of changes during the race.
Què tal tu?
Tinc el sensor
Having a chat with the cameraman. He's enjoying himself, isn't he?
Yeah, I got that impression from the interview. He was here to enjoy it, perhaps not compete for the win unless things went absolutely his way. But as you said earlier, David, he knows exactly what sort of shape he's in, what sort of form he's in. And with being in the same team as Elazzaoui, he knows what the competition is. Yeah, but as you said earlier, his priorities have really switched to phenomenal feats, his Himalayan exploits, you know, his 4,000-meter peaks in the Alps. That record, I suspect, will never ever be touched. He's just achieving the most incredible things. When your body's in that sort of condition, that's really what you should do to build your legacy, because does it make any difference if he gets a 12th or 13th Zegama? Whereas if he gets the 4,000-meter peaks record, that will stand for a long, long time.
For me, the passion comes mostly from being in the mountains. Like, that's who I am. That's why I wanted just to be out in the mountains and this connection with nature. And then I think I have a personality that it's I love this competition, the competitivity. So it's natural that now that my body allows me to push, to try to push and try to perform better and better. And I think it's also human nature to try to explore and to explore what are our capacities. So it's not really about winning or trying to perform better than others, but it's about like trying to explore what are my own limitations and capacities.
Tove Alexandersson from Sweden, she last clocked at 28.5, 3:04 she went through there, and had a decent lead over Sara Alonso, last year's champion. Malin Åsa, third place last year, and looks as though she might just achieve the same again this year. And actually, last time we saw, she was only 30 seconds or so down on Sara Alonso. So Malin Åsa a chance of going one better than she did last year. Local, of course, and that certainly has got to be worth a few minutes. We saw the support at Santa Spiritu, and on all the steep climbs, anyone from anywhere near the Basque Country getting phenomenal support. But I must say, Tove Alexandersson, well received as she came through. Remember, the Swede racing this Zegama event for the first time. That doesn't seem to stop her. Many would say experience of this event is essential if you're going to know how to race it, how to pace it, and how to cope with it. Alexandersson so far proving that is not the case. Malin Åsa, can she close that gap down on Sara Alonso? We'll give you an update on those splits as soon as we can. Good to have you back.
Some technical difficulties there, apologies. Malin Åsa looking fantastic though, you know, overtaking another runner. She's shown how good she is at pacing throughout the last 2-3 years, and also a very, very good technical descender who knows this trail very well, lives locally to Zegama like Sara Alonso.
Yeah, last time we saw there were about 35 seconds between Åsa and Alonso, and with Åsa being in third, I think that's a massive boost for her.
Really bad, tough times during the race. He always tries to finish a race, and we saw him in the final 3 years ago, walking in, because he knows that if he allows himself to not finish a race, then the next time he's in difficulty, it will be so much easier for him to DNF, and so he tries to finish everything as he can. But Malin Åsa now in third place, but potentially with Sara Alonso in her sights. She'll know the splits having come through the peak of under 8s. She would have been given information of where they are. She'll be feeling fantastic now. Second last year, but to come second to Tove would feel like a win for her. So will she be clawing in Sara soon, and how will Sara Alonso respond, knowing that Marlin is the faster downhill runner and that the wind is behind her at the moment?
Yeah, we should get a readout on the gap between the two of them fairly shortly. The advantage of being local. Marlin Ossa, a brilliant vertical K runner. She was the Spanish champion in the VK back in 23.
And she's one of the athletes who, unlike Kilian, she's grown up with trail running around her as a sport. You know, Kilian created the sport. Marlin is one of the first generations to come through where being a trail running professional is an ambition she could have had for a number of years. And I remember when I first met her, when she won the half marathon, the cross at Mont Blanc in, I think, 2021, 2022. People have been aware of her talent for quite a few years, and you know, Salomon have done a lot to try and nurture her through to get her to where she is today, the level that she is, that she can now be competing for podiums in the World Series.
Yeah, certainly not easy to be a professional. I mean, the winning prize money today, a meager 3,000 euros. I can think of athletes who wouldn't do 1/100th of this course for 3,000 euros. Winning the series is certainly a big incentive. What's that? 10 times as much, 30,000 euros for the winner of the series. But that's a hard way to make a living. And so many of them relying on sponsors to keep them away from the office.
And the sponsorship contracts they have, they're the fallback for their careers, but also a race like Zegama, a Golden Trail race, in their contracts they will have performance bonuses where it wouldn't surprise me if the athletes who are in our top 5 winning Zegama will probably get them more money in bonuses than it will in prize money from the Golden Trail.
Yeah, absolutely.
Such is the exposure. But Sara's still looking good. You know, this is a classic position for her there. You know, hands on legs, really driving forward. This is the last harsh climb for them, the climb up to under 8. She'll need to be really making the most of this, knowing that Marlin is behind her. She hasn't looked back, which is a good sign. Whether she knows Marlin is as close as she is.
Well, it's been a while since we had an update on the leading woman, Tove Alexandersson. We'll try and get some information later on. This Marlin Ossa, of course, still looking really comfortable, running really lightly. And we've only got 6 minutes separating the top 5 men, so the gaps are not massive.
And our 4th place runner, Ida, running very well. On the same climb, we can see, this is the camera shot we had of only a few minutes ago of Marlin Ossa. So our top 4, well, our 2nd to 4th place women, all very close, even if Tove Alexandersson is very far ahead. And even now you can see quite how steep that is. And this is Iru, our cameraman, a very fast runner. He used to be a 10K runner himself. I think he's got a sub 30 10K under his belt when he was younger. That's the level of camera runner you have to be to stay up with our athletes. But these two know each other extremely well also. he'll be giving her encouragement, but also letting her know the race splits and how Sara was looking ahead of her. Still pushing well, given she's climbing. You know, this is fast to be running at this stage of the race, up this elevation. Really looking good still. You can see she's clawing back, like really reeling in the runner ahead of her.
Yeah, and so often, David, the men and the women start at different times. The fact they start together means that the leading women always have a target ahead. They're generally never left alone. They can always see someone just a couple of 100 meters ahead that they can gain on. And that's, yeah, nice scenes from Marlenosa. Hopefully that's given her a little bit of a boost. She knows exactly what she's got to do. And she will know to the second how far behind her compatriot she is.
Yeah, I'd imagine her brother would be on the course as well. He often comes out to celebrate afterwards. And you're right, both of these runners on screen will have a huge amount of support out on the mountains from friends, but even just everyone knows their name. And unless you've lived in the Basque region and even in Spain, it's hard to understand how big trail running is. There was a local quiz show where the answer of the question was Sara Alonso. You know, Sara's been on the main news channel before when she's won races like this, and so these are genuine celebrities in the Basque region, and this is the biggest race in the calendar. So, you know, everyone on this mountain will know who Marlenosa and Sara Alonso are. But this is where it can be frustrating. You see Marlon there trying to make a pass, the runner with poles. I know you're in your race, but viewers, if you are in a race, if you are running and there's a female, the head of the female race next to you, please let them pass. Their race is more important than yours. And there's nothing more frustrating than feeling like you're losing time, someone with sticks ahead of you.
Yeah, but it can be a drive for the men as well, just as it can for the leading women. A little bit of incentive. Scandinavians doing pretty good. Robsam of Norway had 4 big wins back in 24. She did the Mont Blanc last year, finished in the top 10 in that event, and only started the Global Trail back in 22, so still relatively new to it.
Yeah, this is definitely the best performance she's had to date. She's, to my recollection, not been top 5 before. Looking really good here. And we talked about Tove, Scandinavian, and this is, in many ways, this could be a hill in Scandinavia. It looks very familiar. She'll be used to running on this terrain, and you can see in her performance today, she's adapted well to it.
Yeah, and Norway have had a pretty good record. 3 times they've won this event. 9 nations in all have shared the women's top prize at Zegama. Slightly less in the men's, thanks to one Kilian Jornet, who's taken 11 out of the 22 so far run.
Now, we've got some splits from the front of the men's race. They've come through Moona, the 34.2K section. So 3 hours 15. In fact, this is 15 minutes ago. So still some time. But it looks like Manu Marias has moved into 3rd place, and potentially that was announced to you when I was having technical issues. But Manu Marias now up to 3rd place, but a full 5 minutes behind our race leaders, Elhousine Elazzaoui and Daniel Pattis, who were still locked together last time of checking. Taylor Stack down in 5th, Remy Bonnet in 4th.
Yeah, Moena 34.2 incidentally, so exactly 8 kilometers to go for the race leaders.
Now looking at the race times through, and oh wow, we've just had the splits through Andreitz. 3:22.29 was the record. 6 minutes ahead. 6 minutes ahead of the course record. Tove and Alexandersson. Just shows you how fast she's moving down that hill. She's taken 4 minutes out of the course record from the last checkpoint, the last split. Remarkable.
Yeah, 3:16.28. Bear that in mind. We'll try and get up Alonso's time. Alonso yet to get a time recorded there. So I would imagine that Alexandersson is a good 10 minutes ahead of the next best.
Yeah, she's a full checkpoint ahead. So, in fact, Sara is not coming up on these. She's dropped off our splits. But
and something else we should point out, I've got Marlin Ossa ahead of Sara Alonso now. The last time we had was a split at 28.5, and there was a gap of 2 minutes between, well, not quite 2 minutes, 1:40 between them.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised given the shots we've seen. There's been enough time where you'd think we'd see them simultaneously on the screen, but potentially, according to the splits at Urbia, you're right, it's saying Sara is now in third. I still would want confirmation of that, unless the pass was a lot earlier than we could see on the screen. A surprise overtake there, especially given that, you know, Sara's still looking like she's running well. She's moving, you know, she's still pressing. It doesn't look as if she's running at a pace that Marlin would have put 2 minutes into her. Just waiting for confirmation on that, though. But there were reasonably large gaps, and you can see how difficult it is to run on this terrain. There's very little space to put your foot down, especially when you're tired. But still, you know, she's picking up the pace again. She's still pressing, she's still running well. So we just need confirmation of exactly where Marlin is in relation to them. But there were big gaps behind when I did check those splits. Fourth place, a couple of minutes behind Sara Alonso, and Ida on screen now was a couple of minutes behind fourth. So third, fourth and fifth, some distance between them.
Yeah, Robsam moving nicely, decent cadence in the legs, 29-year-old Norwegian. And she can see the next little bit of climbing ahead of her, but she knows that every pace bringing her one step closer to the final downhill in this Zegama-Aizkorri race.
And back with Sara now, still flowing well. And what a battle it will be to come through to our finish line. And we'd be expecting, given the course records and given how fast Tove Alexandersson is running, well, 30 to 40 minutes to go for our race leader, but we're in fifth place with, back with our race leader now with Tove. Still looking super fast.
Judith Vida, who of course was second last year, down in sixth place in the women's race at the moment, and a long, long way off the pace of Alexandersson, but so is everyone else. But she's also quite a long way behind the Spanish duo in second and third. This is Norway's Robsam in fourth position in the women's race, finished seventh last year. And interesting that, what, 5 of the top 7 from last year turning up again.
When you do well at a race like this, it's such a specific skill that you need to have. You look forward to returning, because if we think of our series, there are a lot of athletes who aren't here. That's partly due to the strategy of not over racing, but also ensuring that your skills match the terrain. And if we think of, you know, Madalena Faria isn't here. Last year's champion, Joyce Njiru, winner 2 years ago of the series, isn't here. You take at least a month. Oh, bit of a spill there.
That's Sara Alonso going down, and hard.
Oh, that did look quite hard, but
yeah,
she's back up again. I mean, she's used to spills like that. They won't have phased her too much. And quite often what happens when you have a fall like that, you try and bounce back and just stride on, and it takes a while for you to just feel how your body is and whether you are damaged. But the fact she bounced back was a good sign.
Yeah, I was just wondering how many years before trail runners wear helmets. Every other sport seems to have adopted them.
Yeah, true. Now we're back here with Ida Robson. Very good runner. Runs for Team SK Vida, sponsored by Asics. But she's had some good local performances through the years. Half marathon in Norway for the Northfell Trail 21K. Dare I say, this is probably her best performance so far. I mean, last year at OCC 50K, she did come 5th. You know, a strong performance there. A similar length of distance and timing. 50K that race. So, you know, she's shown at the highest level she can top 5.
Yeah. And I think her performance in March at the Chianti Marathon, really an indication that she's on as good a form as she's ever been on. And that's certainly bearing out today with this run. Looks as though she's going to miss out on the podium unless Sara Alonso takes one more tumble. Not the yellow shirt we want to see. Waiting to catch up on the men's leaders. Must be 15-20 minutes since we last saw the battle between Pattis and Elazzaoui.
We're still hoping to get some splits soon to give us an indication of where they are if they're locked together. Coming into this stage 2 years ago when Manny Marias was leading, Elhousine was in 2nd place on his tail and actually got dropped running into the town. So Elhousine will be aware that he is defeatable towards the end of this race.
Yeah, we don't know what the gap is. Last time we saw it, 37 kilometers, it was just 1 second.
The course record time, 3:36. We knew they were behind that today, even though Remy started off faster. So they must be closing in on that finish line now. They're still in mud. There is roads for the last couple of kilometers, so there's still at least 2K to go. Elhousine, it looks like, has pulled away a decisive move. But we have an update from the most recent checkpoint at Ozorutsa, 37.8K in. They were still tied together, neck and neck. Significantly though, Taylor Stack has been making a move up to 3rd place, a minute ahead of Remy Bonnet in 4th.
Yeah, and Maria's down to 5 now. Robert Kemwar of Kenya down in 6th place, 3:37.49. So he's 7.5 minutes down on the leaders. And,
but this is the closing now. If we look, this is the final descent coming. He's emerged from the forest. Elhousine has clear distance between him and Daniel Pattis. He clearly made his move in the woods. He's got a pull back to the left, another shimmy, and then he'll cut down into the town. He'll start to hear the crowds now. I think he'll know he's got this one.
Well, that's a fairly significant gap. We still haven't seen Daniel Pattis, but it was almost inevitable the way Elhousine, and you have to give him credit for not trying to go with Remy Bonnet at the start of the race. He knew what pace he needed to be setting. Bonnet was way over the top of that, and he paid a price. Elhousine just stuck to his guns and did what he always does.
No one knew how to stop Kilian. He was just so dominant. And Elhousine now is reaching that point in his career. He's won 2 series titles in a row. He won here last year. He won last year's final. He just seems capable of increasing the pace over everyone else at will, and no one knows how to respond to it.
Yeah, remarkable performances. There is Daniel Pattis. So by those pictures, although they are slightly stinted, we can only guess he's within a minute. That's for sure. But I'm not sure he's within sight, which is so important. Even at 37.8k, the two men were locked together. And now as they come down into the village, Elazzaoui has broken clear. No man other than Kilian Jornet has defended this title. So this is a big step. He goes into an elite group of 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good point. And, you know, looking back through the record books, I don't think anyone has won twice before other than Kilian. The first person to win, the second person to win 2 races. We've had in the females a number, you know, Ayana Cortazar, the last person to win back-to-back, the local runner as well. But, you know, Daniel Pattis stepping up from 3rd place to 2nd. Pretty good return for him. You know, he's come out knowing Kilian's here. Reme's returning. Manny Marias, former champion. So to come 2nd against that field, really good display. But Elhousine now coming into the town as the crowds slowly pick up.
6-minute gap at the moment between 2nd and 3rd, but a really good battle going on for that final podium place. At the moment, Taylor Stack, who made his name last year, really a standout season for him. He's sitting in 3rd place for the USA. Remy Bonnet in 4. And Bonnet, I guess, has played his trump cards. You know, you suggested very early on that the pace in the early stages might be too high. That's the way it's turned out. And the gap between the 2 leaders is 30 seconds. That will not close. Elhousine Elazzaoui is going to make it to Zegamas on the trot. The time immaterial, conditions not perfect for a record attempt in the men's. Tove Alexandersson in the women's is proving otherwise. But here he comes, the 25 champion at Zegama becomes the 26 champion at Zegama. There is nothing that can stop this Moroccan. The series winner last year and in 24, and he's starting off the 26 season in the best possible way.
The flying camel, the flying Berber. I mean, last season was perfect points. He won every race he needed to, and he started this season again. But not only that, he won the climbing split. He got 10 points there. But Daniel Pattis, I mean, that was close. That was 20 seconds maximum, and you can see how much it means to him. 3rd last year, an improvement this year, given how many winners were on that start line, former winners, to come 2nd. An incredible performance by Daniel Pattis, particularly as an athlete. It's not even full-time. But who will be coming in 3rd? Has Taylor Stack got what he needs to only his, I think, 3rd ever podium of the Golden Trail?
Yeah, we got another 5 minutes or so to find out. It is going to be an extraordinary battle. Taylor Stack seems to have paced things well. He was sitting in 5th and 6th place, but slowly making his way up towards the podium. Here's the man who'll be standing on top. Elhousine Elazzaoui, brilliant tactics yet again. It's a shame we missed the overtaking manoeuvre and we missed the majority of that final downhill into the town.
Yeah, and we've got the splits of the downhill segment. Bogdan Damian, winner for Romania. But, you know, Daniel Pattis was in 4th, a second ahead of Elhousine Elazzaoui. So, you know, Daniel's showing that he can ride it with the big boys on the technical specialism. And
yeah, he's got a beautiful. He's got such a nice style, hasn't he? He's silky smooth on the flatter sections, and those gradual downhills, Pattis looked fantastic.
And it just shows you've got to be such an all-round athlete to win at this. You know, Daniel Pattis hasn't done anything wrong. So good technically, a really good climber, but unless you've got 27-minute 10K pace in a marathon, you can't defeat Elhousine. He's just such a complete athlete. Looking ahead of our season, we're heading to Ledros Sky race next weekend. 21K, 1,700 meters, the scene of our final. That is a good race for Elhousine and for Daniel. You know, it wouldn't surprise me if they both appear there. So if we're thinking ahead of our season, I can't imagine that Salomon or that Patrick Camino are going to be coming to Trentino. It's not a good course for them. Patrick did come second in the final, but if the conditions are like this, we could be seeing Elhousine 2 races in already a huge commanding lead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether they're targeting the richer races, the prize money in Canada and Japan and China, double that it is here. That might well be the case, in which case they're going to be racing a lot later on in the season. And as you mentioned, next weekend, and then there's a break, 5th of July, racing the Mega Trail in Quebec. And the 1st of August, the Salomon Pits Alpine Glacier Trail, hopefully, will be able to get up onto the glacier this year. Last year, the weather preventing that.
Yeah, and we saw what a race that was. Naomi Lang winning it. But here we go. Taylor Stack looking great here. 3rd place. His 3rd ever podium at the Golden Trail. Only joined us halfway through last season. And actually it was in Pits Alpine Glacier Trail where Taylor really announced himself to the world, a track runner with a very good top-end speed, adapting very quickly to longer races. You know, this potentially is his 1st ever marathon. I need to go and check that, but 1st ever marathon finish potentially. So incredible performance from him.
So Taylor Stack in 3 at the moment. Remy Bonnet had a slim lead over Manu Marias, and when I say slim, it was less than 10 seconds last time we saw. So that's going to be an interesting battle coming into the closing stages. And then Robert Kimwa of Kenya also within 3:37. So he's within 40 seconds of a top 4 finish. Here he is.
Yeah, great performance. And there we see that's Remy behind. Remy's just slipped off Robert Keyboy there. You know, fair play to Remy. He's gone out and revealed his cards early and fought through to the end. At one point, it looked like he was really starting to shed time, but running fairly well there. I think he could be proud of what he's put on the line today. Maybe not the result he wanted, but he gave it his all. We're still waiting for some splits though from our ladies. Tove has gone through the 34K mark now. She's gone through Mono in 3:35. Let's see what that's done against our course record time. Oh, wow. Wow. Okay, how many minutes are you saying, Patrick, do you think Tove is under the course record currently?
Well, the last time we looked at it, which was just under 10 kilometers ago, it was 6 minutes. So I'm going to say she's added another 2.5. I'm saying 8.5 minutes.
Yeah, she's 8.5, 9 minutes ahead of the course record. This is crazy given the conditions. Wow, imagine if this was dry. Imagine.
And she's on to the front page of the results sheet. That gives you some idea of just how good she is. Running with Damien Bogdan, and where is she relative to the leading men? 3:15, 3:35, so only 20 minutes down, going through the 34K mark on Elhousine Elazzaoui.
Here comes Taylor Stack coming in for third place. A fantastic result for the American runner. He's going to be happy with that. A very long distance for him, for someone so short in their career so far. But last year he promised to be the breakout star. This year he's showing that wasn't a fluke. Real talent here for such a young athlete, someone who could really grow into this season. Top 3 today, but you know, is he a name to watch for shorter races that suit him, like next week? Could that be another podium opportunity for him? But talking back about, you mentioned that she's running with Bogdan Damien. Tove up with Bogdan. Bogdan set the fastest downhill of the day, and yet Tove's with him. How remarkable is that?
Yeah, absolutely astonishing. Third man in today. Fourth man, I should say. Manu Marius, it's been up and down. What a phenomenally strong athlete. Spaniards loving that performance.
He loves his dog. They run everywhere together. They train together in the mountains. Manu lives in a small village of only, I think, 5 houses. So his dog is a considerable percentage of the living organisms he sees week to week.
Well, what a race from Remy Bonnet. He gave it everything over the first 15K. First up the first peak, first to the high point of the course, then the wheels came off a little bit for Remy Bonnet, but that's how you make a name for yourself. He gave it 100%. Didn't quite go his way in the end.
Yeah, you can see there. He's spent everything there, isn't he? He's spent everything today. Won this race back in 2019. That was the real breakout. In fact, 2018, that was a real breakout year for him when he was signed by Salomon. You know, suddenly saw the opportunity. At one point, it looked like he was going to dominate this sport. 2 series back-to-back for Golden Trail, but since then the speed that runners like Elhousine have brought into it, it used to be that we had African runners who were unbelievably fast but couldn't adapt to trail, but now that just to know that Elhousine can run fast and can run technically, it's very hard to see how Remy can get himself back into this sport and challenge for titles again.
Well, this man frozen on your screen, Max Drian de Chapois, and yeah, he was way outside the top 10 early on. He's recovered exceptionally well, and that's one of the outstanding performances of the day.
He looks pretty fresh, doesn't he? Doesn't look like he's got too much mud on him. Clearly just been cruising through this course. Fair play, given how hard it is. But we do have a split through Moano, and I can confirm Marlon Ossa through in second, 3:49. So currently 14 minutes down on Tove Alexandersson. But in third place, Sara Alonso is now just over 2 minutes behind Marlon. 2-minute gap between second and third place. Marlon looking the stronger runner currently. And we're going
to have some words from Tove Alexandersson. She's still out there on the course, so this is pre-recorded.
I mean, she could probably do the interview on the course without slowing down. She's finding it that easy. Let's hear from her now.
Yeah, so I come from Sweden, and I'm kind of a multi-sport athlete. My main sport has always been orienteering, but I also done a lot of other different sport and also a few trail running races, but this year I will have more focus on trail running, so I'm really excited for that. Yeah, Zegama is a race I always wanted to run, so this year when I focus more on trail running, I really wanted to go here. I think it's a really strong field this year, so it will be an exciting race, but for the moment I'm more focusing on my own and also to handle the course in the best possible way, so yeah, I think it will be an interesting race.
It certainly is, and I don't think we should be too surprised that she is excelling herself yet again. But in the future, we just need to be careful about saying you need a huge amount of experience to win this one. She's proved that is not the case.
Yeah, I mean, there's experience on a course, and there's experience in terms of running terrain like this. And we said at the start of the show, to me, she's the most exciting trail runner on earth, men or women, has been for years. And, you know, when you start orienteering at 1 year old, you don't need to know a course to be able to attack it aggressively. And you add a week on top of that where she's been here, actually going out and exploring, and she's just dismantling this course record. It's just on a different level to anyone else. And last year's world champs, a lot of people know the name Courtney Dauwalter and how incredible some of her performances have been at that 100-mile level. Well, Tove's race performance last year at the World Champs was technically, based off the ITRA scores, the best trail run of a female in history. You've got to wonder today, in the wet like this has got to be the best performance of all time in trail running. Surely, surely.
Well, she's still a few minutes away, and the top 5 men celebrating their achievements today. The man in the middle of your picture, Elazzaoui, with the win. 36 coming in, Roberto De Lorenzi, and it's sort of picked out by Kilian Jornet as one of the possible stars today, but he's a good 15 minutes down on the winners. But another solid performance from De Lorenzi.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll beat. He wouldn't want a result like this. I'd have put him up there with Daniel Pattish. You know, 2 years ago, him and Daniel were running side by side, and it's one of the challenges when Roberto was a student turned full-time athlete. He won the European Championships, but when you become a full-time athlete, you then almost have too much time to train, and has been struggling with form. I think a year and a half where he was racing almost every weekend, he struggled to respond to that. We've seen that with a lot of athletes, people like Sophia Luckley as well, overtrained and really had to take time out to come back to form. And Roberto, we hope, will be back in the form that saw him win those World Championships, European Championships, because he's a top 5 runner for sure at a race like this. But for reference with Tove, her performance today, I mean, we talked about the course records. Nika Brickman, 3rd in the marathon in the Europeans, 2:22 marathon on her second attempt. 4:16 was her time, but it's not just that she's demolishing that record. That time was such a hot day. The conditions were so dry. It's such an outlier. outside of that year, the fastest 3 times are all in that year. Sara Alonso, Maud Mathis. But other than that, 4:31, 4:29, 4:27. These are the times that Zegama has been won with the last 3 years.
Yeah,
and
they
so,
see just bottom left of your screen, just to point it out, the winning time in the men, 3:45.11. And you've got to bear in mind, over 2,500 meters of climbing involved in that marathon distance. So 3:45.11. There are many who would be chuffed to bits if they did the London Marathon in 3:45.
Yeah, and Elhousine has had a battle almost all the way to the line, and he's still 9 minutes down on the course record. The conditions make that much of a difference, and yet Tove is 9 minutes up on the course records against a 2:20 marathon runner. Unbelievable.
Might even go 10 minutes inside the record. Just a reminder, 4:16.43. So she's got 4 minutes or so to finish if she is going to beat that 10-minute barrier, which would be absolutely astonishing. Perhaps one of the greatest sporting feats so far in 2026. Certainly going to make a name for herself in trail running if she keeps entering the races. What her intentions are as far as the global trail goes, David, do you know?
The challenge is, she said she doesn't necessarily want to do the whole series. She is still competing in orienteering. While it's not the World Championships at her preferred distance, she will still be competing in that. And that's one of the challenges. If you're 6 times world champion in different sports, you know, the fact that she is so good at this sport won't be that important when she's so good at every sport. And so you've got to hope that her Salomon contract will kick in, that they can somehow entice her in, because you want to be seeing the best trail runner in the world running your series.
I'm just wondering if this is her coming down the hill now. It is quite possible.
It's
It
got to
looked
be,
like
surely
her style, but you wouldn't have. I don't think we'd have picked up with the drone shot if it wasn't Tove Alexandersson heading in towards the finish. Still got a couple of minutes to go to get into the village, and it is. There she is, and she could well go 10 minutes inside the Zegama record.
I mean, she looks like she's in a battle for first place. She's pushing hard right now. Having a runner beside her is going to hopefully reduce that pain feeling, but wow, she is really pushing hard. 4:04 on the clock, within 1.5 kilometers now. She's going to...
last year you won Zegama and
but here is this year's champion, Elhousine Elazzaoui.
Series ranking. What does it feel to be back here and start this season again at the first place?
Yeah, very happy. It's a big dream for me today. It's a historic winner again here in Zegama. Won the race, best in the world with a strong athlete. This race is for Kilian Jornet, but I am very happy. Winner today here in Zegama for me is historic.
Where did you make the difference today? In the climbs, in the descents, or mentally?
Yeah, the race today is complicated, but I ran smart. Just last 39 kilometers, you have the flat, and I go fast. But the last athlete is very, very strong again.
Thank you so much, and congratulations for your win.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that's something he's learnt over the years, is to run smart, and it's similar tactics. The trouble is everyone knows what he's going to do, but no one can do anything about it.
Yeah, he knows the course. He says, I waited to the flat bit, and then I just ran fast. It's that simple for him. Tove hasn't needed tactics today. She's just, from start to finish, been a different class to any athlete on this planet. I mean, what a dominant display. She looked so strung up. The use of poles, so clever, and downhill, so smooth. Just beautiful to watch.
Yeah, last moment of quiet for Tove Alexandersson as she comes down towards the finish. Just a scattering of fans here at home. It's been an outstanding performance. I wonder whether Sara Alonso paid the price of not trying to go with her, but racing a little bit faster than she would otherwise have done. Alonso, as you said, is a sort of a computer out on the track. She knows exactly what she needs to do. But if she was going to beat Alexandersson, she had to push hard at the start. Did that cost her second place?
Yeah, and what does this mean for our series? Because we saw Sara win in Japan last year. We saw her win in Zegama, and we've spoken about how Marlon has struggled with cramp throughout her career and really hasn't had the chance to perform at her best very often. Is this a signal that actually a fully fit Marlon Ossa is faster than a fully fit Sara Alonso? And does that mean that Marlon Ossa could now genuinely start to think about challenging for the series? Or, as you say, did Sara, was the pressure of leading the series, of leading last year's race, of knowing you're the defending champion, did that get to her? Did she put too much into those early climbs? Because she really was attacking them.
Well, here she comes. Tove Alexandersson gets the crowd raised again. Just a little sign of a smile on her face. Less than 200 meters to go. She's into the hub of the town now. One more left turn and into the finish for Tove Alexandersson of Sweden at 33 years of age. Her first time at Zegama, and she absolutely thrashes the course record at the first time of asking. She said she'd give everything. She's done exactly that, and she's shown the world what she can do. 6 world titles in different sports. My goodness, the cross-country skiers in Sweden will be glad that she hasn't taken up their sport, and the biathletes will be thinking the same. She is an absolute phenomenon.
And the fact she collapsed over the finish line, she'd have known from halfway that this race is done, and such is the athlete that she attacked every single yard of this course with her full force. Anyone else would have relaxed in that last 2K, but not Tove. She pushed her body to this limit because she loves racing that much. What a warrior. I don't know if we'll ever see someone of this level on this course ever again. Unbelievable.
You won here and you were in the podium last
Daniel
year.
Pattis, second place today.
Year, you repeated in the podium. Did you feel like you were racing with a different sense of responsibility?
Yeah, a little bit. I knew the race from last year quite well, even though this year it was really different because the conditions with the mud and the snow were really different than last year. But yeah, I had a little doubt to come here again because I did so good, well last year, so I was afraid to be a little bit disappointed this year. But no, it went even better, so really, really great.
This was a hard-fought for the first place. What would you describe? How would you describe this duel with Elhousine?
Yeah, we did a lot of the race together, especially the second half. Then in the last downhill, he passed me. I tried to keep up with him, but I didn't manage. He's just so fast. But anyways, second place at Zegama means so much, so I don't really care.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, that sentence, second place at Zegama, I don't care. Like, it's not a win against Elhousine. That's how big this race is. And, you know, that to me is the best performance of his career so far. You know, he came third in Kengao. He's had third here last year, but second against this field. Amazing performance from Daniel Pattis. Now we've had the splits come through at the 37.8k mark for the top of our ladies race. Malinossa still leading through that point in 4:06. Behind her, Sara Alonso, 4:09. 2.5 minutes between them now. The checkpoint before, Ida Robson was still in 4th place, around 2.5 minutes back on Sara Alonso. Maria Olcina, a further 5 minutes behind, but we should be getting the full split of our 37K mark shortly to give you our top 5 in the women's. Now looking ahead to next week's race, we travel to Italy, the same race course of last year's final for Ledro Sky Trentino. It's 21.5 kilometers, 1,700 meters of climbing, and it was an absolutely brutal race last year. Not only was the steepness of the ascent challenging, but as soon as our runners got to the peak, if you recall, it was very, very hard to find your footing. The skyline, the ridge, hard to run on, but these are the results today, the confirmation of our top 10. Quite a few new names in there. Maximilian Drion, top 7 for him, new to the series this year. Benjamin Rubio, we know, will be on tour with us. One of the Asics runners who is in for this season, a good, strong performance for him. And Antonio Martinez, one of the many Spanish runners here today. Great performance, rounding off our top 10.
And of course, the segment points added, that will go on through the year. The best 4 segments that you gain throughout the year will count. Here's
third place
Taylor Stack, 3rd place today.
How do you feel right now?
Pretty amazing. I was surprised and just so happy to end up in 3rd place in such a competitive field. So
it was a technical race. Was this a big problem for you during this race?
Yeah, it was it's a very difficult course, like so much vertical, very technical, and the conditions today were also very challenging. It was super slippery, very muddy. There was a little bit of snow on top, and I was falling all over the place. I think everyone was, but I really kind of enjoy that kind of racing, and I think I can thrive in those conditions, and that's what happened today. So super happy.
Well, now it's time to enjoy this celebration, so congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, well done to Taylor Stack. I'm not sure his body will be thanking him tomorrow morning when all the bruises start to come out. It certainly looked as though Tove Alexandersson had taken a fall or 2. We miss a lot of the course on this particular race because of the distances and the difficulties of transmitting the pictures, but I hope you've had a good sense of exactly what these athletes have been through over the last 4 hours or so, and there are still plenty to come in. 500 entrants allowed.
Yeah, and we heard from Taylor how much it meant to him. His best performance to date as well. He came 3rd last year in the Pitts Alpine Glacier Trail. His kind of real announcement on the tour. 4th in last year's final, but as far as I can tell, that is the longest distance he's raced by quite some distance. Sierra Zanau last year, 31K, but this is a big step up. 2 hours 38 to an extra hour of running. A really, really big challenge for him today. Now, you've mentioned the awards and the money they'll be getting. One thing Tove won't have is on her mantelpiece is an axe that you get for winning Sierra Zanau. They're huge. They're forged in fire and inscribed, beautiful works of art. But we should be getting an update on our top 5 women shortly. we expect to be Marlon Ossa. The last time we checked, she was in second place. 2 minutes up on last year's winner, Sara Alonso. We hope to be seeing drone footage when they come through the 41K mark. Now, looking ahead to the rest of the season, it does seem this year, fewer races, 7 instead of last year's 8, but also the balance of the races plays more to the technical specialists. We saw in Trentino at last year's final how technical that downhill was, and we've got a sense today of how much that can have an impact on the race.
Yeah, but there are going to be very few who race here today who will race again. Only one race over in the other side of the Atlantic this year, just Quebec Mega Trail as opposed to 2. How does that affect things?
I mean, it's a real shame, and it's one of the challenges we saw at last year's, this year's cross-country World Championships, that a lot of the athletes just weren't able to get visas. I think 8 or 9 Ethiopian runners couldn't run, and this is genuinely a political reason. It's how can we put a series on when we don't know which athletes will actually be allowed in the country? But it could be quite damaging to the results of the North American athletes. We've seen that we've got Taylor Stack here, but there's normally far more Americans in our fields and Canadian runners, and they don't tend to travel as much, understandably. And not having 2 races on your backyard, that's a disadvantage for them. And so no two ways about it. We've had runners who could even run 2 races in California, and now they've only got the 1 race in Canada. So this is a huge disadvantage for them, and they're going to have to perform either in Asia and Europe a lot more, and the terrain and the trail is a lot more technical.
Yeah, and so even more credit to Taylor Stack for turning up, but I imagine Zegama has always been on his to-do list and to do well, and he certainly achieved that today, getting a top 3. Kilian Jornet soaking up the applause of the crowd. He stuck with the leaders early on, but it was pretty soon. It was obvious he's not on winning shape. So for only the 2nd time he competes here at Zegama, the 13th time he's taken part in this race, but it's only the 2nd time that he hasn't been the first across the finish line. He is an absolute legend in these parts. Kilian Jornet will forever be associated with Zegama and Sierra Zinal, where he's also been the dominant athlete. But the next generation are there. He's certainly not past it, but he's gonna have to do a little bit of extra training if he's gonna catch Elazzaoui.
And I wonder how today stacks up to his previous races. You can see there he's really enjoyed the crowds and just taking in the atmosphere. You got a sense that he knew early that this wasn't going to be his day. Do you think he enjoyed it quite as much? Because he is an instinctive racer. Marlon Ossa, though, our 2nd place lady, through a flash of our 2nd.
Yeah, she's on the way, and she's within a couple of minutes of finishing, so it looks as though she's held off Sara Alonso.
The fact that she was on road, she's coming into the town now, less than 1.5 kilometers to our finish line. And this will be a great performance for her. She came 2nd last year, having had cramps, but to come 2nd ahead of Sara, behind Tove. And the time as well, for Marlon Ossa to be coming in what would be, by my calculations, the 3rd fastest ever time in well, she's still got a few minutes to go, to be fair.
She's struggling a little. She was 3rd last year, wasn't she? Because Alonso, Vida, and then Marlon Ossa. So she's gone 1 better than last year.
Good point, calling me up on that. But yeah, if we look back at the best ever times, Maud Mathis 4:26 in 2022, Sara Alonso 4:26.40. So potentially coming in for the third fastest ever time, which, given these conditions, she's ahead of anyone else to date, other than Nika Brinkman and Tove Alexandersson.
Still a way to go, and you can tell those legs are very, very tired indeed. Just needs to be careful with that footing. Once she's on the tarmac, she'll be okay. Very welcome finish indeed for Malin Åsa.
Yeah, and she's come through Helmuga now, so she is.
Yeah, and there's Sara Alonso. What's that, a minute and a half difference between the two of them? Something like that. Alonso's had a tough day out there.
And she'll know exactly where Malin is. The locals would have told her. She'll know that second is probably no longer in her sights. And we saw on screen she was looking back just to check. Nerves there, wanting to maintain that podium position. But Malin Åsa less than a kilometre now from the finish line. A really good performance from her. And looking back on her career, I think she's only ever had 1 second in a Golden Trail previously. So this, again, her best ever result.
And she's a young athlete as well, just 23, plenty more years of running Zegama if she chooses to do so. Now, hopefully the crowd will take the pain out of her legs, and certainly an increase of speed as she comes into the last 100 metres or so for Malin Åsa. From third last year to second this year, it's been a phenomenal effort, carried part of the way by the fans.
And you know, are we looking at a future champion of Zegama here? She's got to be up there. She's got the technical ability, the local knowledge. She's good in the wet, and it looks like she's managed to overcome that blight on her racing so far. No cramp issues, just strong throughout this race. And you saw the emotion of her coming through there, how much this means to her.
Under 4 hours 24. Last year, she was closer to the 4 hours 30 mark. In fact, she was over 4 hours 30 last year. Wow.
The third fastest time of all time.
Here's Kilian Jornet again.
Kilian, this year has been a little bit different. How did you live this race this year?
Today the race, like physically I was feeling well, but I had a small problem in the tensor, and yeah, I could see from the start that in the downhills and in the flat I was struggling, and then we were kind of in the battle until the downhill after Aizkorri, and there I thought, oh, it's a lot of flat, I will just enjoy the race. Normally we go like full gas, we cannot enjoy all the spectators, all the people, and it's been amazing. Like even if it's not the result I was wishing for, it's always an amazing experience to be running here.
And what does it mean for you to be here in the 25-year anniversary of Zegama?
It's special. It's 25 years of the race. The other day we were like with all the other winners, and that's something unique. I mean, like a race that it carries so many people, athletes and spectators, and for so many years, it's just the emotions of all the people here. They are always very, very strong.
Well, congratulations for your position, and we hope to see you soon here again.
Thank you very much, for sure.
Well, there are only 11 other winners of this race. He's won 11 titles. For those of British interest, Ricky Lightfoot, when did he win? He won back in 2009. Rob Jebb won in 2005, so a pretty good record for the Brits in the men's. As far as the women's go, Angela Mudge, the only Brit to have won this race, but they are there on the map. Scandinavians doing particularly well, David, and again another Scandinavian victory for Tove Alexandersson of Sweden today.
Yeah, we've had Ingrid Kaspersen in the past, Steen Ungermund, you know, great champion, Emily Forsberg, wife of Kilian Jornet, winner back in 2013. But we are gonna hear some more updates now. But interesting that Kilian, it seems that good to hear that it's not his fitness. He just had some kind of niggle. It was the downhills and, you know, clearly something mechanical stopping him racing well. So hopefully that means that we're not past the peak of Kilian, that this wasn't a fitness issue, this wasn't an aging issue.
Sorry.
But here's Remy Bonnet.
You won a Zegama in 2018, which came as a surprise for so many. 8 years later, does it feel different to be here again?
Yeah, I was happy to be back, and yeah, today I felt great until the kilometer 35, and yeah, I tried to push from the start and to make the race really hard for the others. So I was leading until Santo Spiritu and the first climb, and yeah, I was feeling quite good. But at the end, I had some cramps, and so I lose some position. But yeah, I am happy. I give everything, and that's what matters, to give everything till the line.
Yeah, exactly. So you push so yourself hard from the start. Which was harder, your legs or your head in this case?
Yeah, the legs, because I had cramps. But yeah, it was cool to have all the emotion during Santo Spiritu with all the crowd, and so it's a special place, and it will be one of my favorite race for forever. Yeah.
Thank you and congratulations for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, he certainly was, and he was leading and he was enjoying every moment out there, as we saw from very early on, starting to, you know, interact with the crowd at an early stage in the race.
Yeah, I mean, he's so experienced now that he knows what his body's telling him, how to push, when to push, and the fact he can look at this having enjoyed it, even though it didn't turn out the way he wanted. But yeah, this is what we love trail running, the fact that people will come and commit everything. But we have we've missed. Did we see Sara across?
Yeah, Sara Alonso's across the line just a couple of minutes ago. There she is. I don't think she was caught by Robson, but it might have been quite close because the Norwegian was doing really well over the closing stages.
Yeah, looking at the splits, Ida looks like she was 2.5 minutes back on Sara Alonso in 4th place. We're expecting it looking like Maria Olcina coming through next. Just waiting for confirmation of that. But yeah, Sara Alonso, you can see how much of a crowd favourite she is. Local runner, last year's champion, Pep, our camera, head of camera, also her boyfriend on screen there. But what a race it's been. Completely contrasting. One dominant display in the women's, a battle almost to the end in the men's, and but it does feel like there's a changing, you know, Kilian getting older, these new younger runners coming through. Bit of a changing of the guard today, but for the first time Elhousine, I think, has beaten Kilian. But Sara with her mum there, Eden, on the side there, and her sister Lydia with her. And looking ahead to the rest of the season, so this has been the longest race of, it's the longest race in our season, marathon distance, We have a 21K coming up next weekend in Ledro, Sky Trentino in northern Italy. Then we have a few months off for them to recover before heading to Quebec for the Mega Trail, 5th of July. It's the Pitts Alpine Glacier Trail, 1st of August, followed the week after by Sierra Zanao, 50 years, the granddaddy, the most famous trail race in the world. Before we then head to Asia, new this season, the Myoko Trail race in Japan. Volcanic mountain race with long climbs through forests. 23.5k, 1,700 meters ascent. We stay in Asia for the Jingshanling Great Wall Trail race, new to their series last year. Incredibly hard steps to run on with dusty trails before our grand final. 24th to the 25th of October in South Korea, there for the first time.
Yeah, and that's quite a tough course. I know it's not as long as this, 26k, but 2.2 kilometers of vertical climb. It's a mass participation event. They're expecting 5,000 to be running that course as opposed to 500 here at Zegama. So Korea is going to be a very, very special occasion. Looking forward to that. And yeah, the Great Wall, Jingshanling, was sensational last time, and that's where we may see the Kenyans shine again. Kipngeno, Kiriago, both did well last time.
Yeah, and they'd have seen today, they'd have suspected that Elhousine would have won, and they'll now be trying to think where they could win their 200 points that you can get for a win. Looking ahead of this season, there are fewer. And another that Sara, friends with Team Spain coming together there. Top 5 result.
Maria Fuentes just finishing, solid performance from her, and raced the half marathon in Gran Canaria last month, so she set a pretty tough program for herself, and absolutely delighted with that.
Yeah, great performance for her. Best result in the Golden Trail to date. But looking ahead of our season, Philemon Kiriago, Patrick Kipngeno, the two biggest challenges to Elhousine. Sierra Zanao has been the race they have dominated the last few years, and you suspect that will be the same again. But there's not as many opportunities for very fast flowing running. You mentioned Jingshanling, definitely plays in their favour. We saw them come 1-2 last year as well. Nicolas Maduro coming through on screen here, the American runner here. Good performance for him. So yeah, there's two races you suspect will be Philemon or Patrick's favour. The rest of them, though, it's hard to see how they can stop Elhousine.
Yeah, on this sort of form, maybe he's going to max out on points as he did last year to win the series for the second time.
Looking at our women's race, Caroline Kibitai, winner in Jingshanling. She'll be returning for more races this season. She's one to watch. Madalena Faria, I think she'll be happy with this. You know, Sara, second last year in the series, not winning today is surely an advantage for Madalena. And Joyce Njiru been running well earlier this season already, so we know they're returning. Ninka Brinkman is rumoured to be coming back. Maud Mathis. We have Sophia Lockley also rumoured to be returning. So in this year's series, we have all of the series champions returning. You know, that's how level how much depth there is in the competition this year.
Yeah, and they may all be hoping that Tove Alexandersson doesn't decide to do 4 of the first 7 and put herself in a position to win the series. But that looked pretty easy for Alexandersson today. Sweden have a new old star. She's just switched sport and shown exactly what she can do. Outstanding. I guess one of the questions is, if Alexandersson races this race in good conditions, as in dry and cool, could she break that 4 hours?
I mean, there's no question in my mind. Absolutely no question, because a time like, I mean, it's 8 minutes difference, which is a lot, but if you think that they were 9 minutes slower than the course record today, and that was, a lot of that was conditions, especially as in good conditions, she's going to know the course even better. So let's hope that we get to see that, because a sub 4 hour by the women's would be remarkable. Now
there she is.
Back on her feet again. Judith Weider, we expect to be coming through the next runner, and Lucille Germain, also in our top 10, pressing her to the line. A really good performance from her as well. Look at the mud down, Sara. It's like she's been rolling around. I know Sara was wearing prototype trainers today. She had a choice of 2 different lugs that had never been worn before. I hope she made the right decision. We were messaging about what the lugs meant in terms of on rock and on over slick running. Marla Nosser there, second today, clearly delighted with her performance. Marlon and Sara, very, very good friends.
Yeah, and Marlon also, same team as Tove, so she knew what she was up against. We heard an interview from Marlon earlier on. She was a little bit cagey, certainly didn't want to say that Alexandersson is going to win this one. But I think in her mind, she knew that there was no one here to match the Swede. And that was absolutely astonishing. 4 hours 8 to win, 8 minutes off the course record set back in 2022 by Nienke Brinkman. So Tove Alexandersson of Sweden wins the Zegama for 2026, and Elazzaoui of Morocco defends his title from last year. Well, there's nothing like having the hardest race of the season first. I guess it's out of the way now, David.
Exactly. You can retire, put your feet up. And a lot of these athletes are very experienced, but still, this will be in their legs. And I can't wait to see what the run list is for next weekend, because they'll know by Tuesday if they're going to race or not. And one of the challenges is, how do you rebound? But you've got all these micro tears. Is racing next weekend an injury risk? But if they don't run next weekend, and we do have a bit of time, it's July, the next race, it's a really good test on the legs, and actually this should make them stronger, because there's a lot of time to take off before we return to the Quebec Trail in Canada.
Yeah, well, I tell you what's refreshing is seeing athletes that have finished 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th absolutely delighted with their performances. Normally it's only the winner celebrating. Alexandersson's just taking it in her stride. She's got the win.
She's the only unhappy one.
She's had so many victories in her time. And the Spanish contingent delighted to be up in the top 5. And they're going to have a champagne celebration for the top women here today. We've already had the men's, which was headed by Elhousine Elazzaoui, who defended his title from last year, and he did it in similar style. He waited, lit the turbos, and even Daniel Pattis couldn't live with him over the last 7-8K. A brilliant victory for him. But it's Tove Alexandersson who wins the women's. There she is with the Salomon vest on in the middle of the picture. Looks pretty much recovered. Sara Alonso, head to toe in mud, had to settle for 3rd place today.
And you can see there, Maria Fuentes just cheering, really delighted with her result there. The Benidorm runner, best result of her her career to date.
Yeah. The last thing Alexandersson needed was her fresh clothes covered in champagne. That will teach her to get changed so early, or to finish so early. 4:08, the winning time in the women's. The course record has gone. Brilliant day out at Zegama, as always. Leg one of the GTWS is complete. We're in Italy next weekend, May the 24th, for Ledro Sky Trentino. Hope to see you there. Well, let's enjoy some of the pictures from today's race. Dramatic from start to finish. David, if you were to pick out one highlight from the men's and the women's races?
Tove.
Counts for both. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, world beating Tove Alexandersson. Orienteering, ski mountaineering, trail running. She can do it all. What a race, what a day. Thanks to David for his company throughout the race, and thanks for you for watching. We will be back again next weekend with leg 2. We'll see you there.